Okay, I'd like to bring to order the Town of Atherton City Council, December 4th special meeting. So I'm going to change the order if you guys don't mind and do the senior thing first. George just told me that online it's listed different than ours, and ours has the senior first, and I see you guys here and I don't see anyone from the park here yet. So if it's okay with everyone is it okay? We'll switch and we'll do you guys first if that's okay. Okay, so let's start with a roll call.
Councilmember DeGolia,
Yep.
Councilmember Holland,
Here.
Whitmer,
Yep.
Vice Mayor Lewis,
Here.
and Mayor Hawkins.
Here.
Thank you.
Public comment. So as a special meeting, public comment is limited to items that are on the agenda. Speaker time is limited to 3 minutes. Speakers may also speak when the item comes up on the agenda during the meeting. So the first item is to receive the presentation from the senior task force and provide feedback and direction to staff. So the report is Anthony, is that right? Or-
Yeah, I'd be happy to introduce this. So as the city council is aware, about a year ago, we entered into an arrangement with the county and the Center for Age-Friendly Excellence, where we conducted a few focus groups and we had a few informal sessions with some members of the community. After that, there was a presentation to council early January of 2024, where those outcomes and results were presented, and the council directed that this resident-led group could continue to meet and help develop some initiatives and programs related to senior topics in town, and then they would provide some type of report back to the city council. And so this group of folks are here to do that today. I'd be happy to answer any questions about background or history if you'd like.
You want ex parte conversation?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Did I forget something? See, Elizabeth, you didn't
Well, it's
vote.
not on the agenda, but we,
Do we have any ex parte communications to report? Go ahead.
yeah, during my office hours, Ken Frederick came in and spoke about this, actually both items on the agenda, and gave me his 2 cents.
Yes.
Just two?
It was much more than 2 cents.
Yeah,
Okay, maybe it was more,
got a
50 cents.
discount. Black Friday rate.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of parents about playgrounds.
Wonderful,
Oh, yeah, and I also spoke to Julie Quinlan about several things, including
wonderful. Anybody else? No? All right, Ken, you're up.
Thank you very much for letting us do this. Can you hear, everyone here? Can you hear? Okay, so what we have here are the remnants of the original task force, which started out around 10 people, but over time it dropped off because it took a lot more time than people expected. So we have Joan, Joanne, and myself. One of the remnants who did drop off is Christine, who decided she had better things to do, but she's been part of it. And John shows up to give us moral support. So we have a collection here of what we've been doing. And the purpose of what I wanted to do, and you guys can direct this obviously, is kind of tell you, are we meeting, are the goals that we thought we were chasing what you wanted done? Because instead of saying, here's what we're going to do, I'd like to make sure we're meeting what you want done. What's the problem we're trying to solve? Okay? And I think, and we can talk about it, all of us, that the problem we're trying to solve is, are there enough seniors in Atherton to really care about? And the answer is, well, there are, because it's right now 25% of the town, growing rapidly, and much faster than the children. Children were actually 2 to 3 times the size of the children under 12. And so it's a growing area. And by the way, that's probably half the voters in town, because if there's 2,500 voters and there's 1,700 seniors, probably half are seniors. And the next question is, so there are a lot of seniors. The question is, are there any programs, services they're not getting that they want? And so what are they? So the next step after saying, yeah, there are a lot of seniors, is let's go find out if there are services out there. And we had 2 major sessions this year, one in May, one in October. One we ran totally, one we ran with Kensington Place. And during those and other meetings, we tried to get a understanding from people what they wanted. And so I would come back and say, and again, I want the ladies to make sure that they agree. What we found is that if you want a program for seniors, there's many out there. They're all over the place. And the challenge is knowing when and where they are. And that's the biggest issue we have. If you look for programs that are good for seniors, either our library or, Little House or somebody probably has a program available, probably free to go to. But the challenge is, how do you find them? And the biggest issue is, at least from my point of view, there is no one place where you can go to. And you often have to go to 15 or 20 websites or whatever to find them. So one of our early discussions with Christina and the team and friends of the library was, can we make the library a information center? Can we find a place in the library where, if you're a senior and you're trying to find out what's out there, what programs exist, what's the schedule? Can you go to one place and find it either both on a kiosk, maybe on a bulletin board, whatever? And so that discussion's underway right now. And in that effort, we've tried to find libraries that do that. And by the way, it's hard to find one. If you go to our library 2 months ago and said, is there a place for seniors? You get sent out to the large print books. That's for seniors. And on your way, you pass the little kids area, the little bigger kids area, the teenager area, but you don't find anything for seniors. So we put together our new librarian and people at the American Library Association who've done senior centers mainly on the East Coast. And hopefully we can benchmark what's being done, because they're not being done out here, of what senior centers look like in libraries, et cetera. So basically the question is, if there are all these programs out there, is there any other need? Is there any program special that's not out there? So that's our challenge right now, is to say, here's all the programs, we can collect them all through the library, and then say, is there anything that the seniors want and really want? Not that we think they want, but that they really want, that they would go to that is not available on these systems. We think we have some ideas, but we don't want to go build one and have them come. We want to do some work around it. So basically, the update is, we'll come back to you early next year with a proposed budget, is what we might have to spend. Wouldn't be very much, but more importantly, it's mainly driven by what we can get from our library system. Because if there's enough programs in the library system, then we only have to do one or two, and that makes life easy. In addition, if we get the library to be the center of information for all this stuff and take the personnel effort to collect all that data and put it somewhere, that takes a load off everybody. So if we can get the library to do that, that's a wonderful thing. And I think that's in their charter, but we'll find out in the next month or so. So that's the role for the library. And then a role for the staff. One of the issues is, we do not have a list of where the seniors are and how to find them. We know we got 1,800 seniors, 1,700 seniors in town, but we don't know where they live and how to get to them, other than sending out a bulk mailing. So when we had our first session and when then Kensington Place did their session, we just did a bulk mailing to all 94027. But if we knew that where the 1,700 seniors were, which is probably 1,000 maybe houses, that would make it more efficient than everything else. So we'd like to create a actual good database of where the people live and how to connect to them. Are they best off with emails, hard copy mail, whatever it is? That's the real challenge. That's one where we're collecting some information from the meetings we've had. So we got some emails, some addresses, et cetera, but that's a continuing challenge. Keep on building that database. And we had a meeting with an outside contractor not so long ago. And he said, well, what's the problem? Just buy the list. He said, you can buy those lists for a couple $1,000 from the guy. All the stuff you get in the mail that says, Ken, you're a senior, you should do this. They got my name off a list. So we can buy a list for Atherton, I guess. That we haven't searched that, but that might be the easy way to get started as well. So again, library, one thing, staff, we think should do the database issue, we think. And then for our point of view is, our goal, I think, would be to find if there are any non-standard programs that aren't existing that our residents want. Again, we got some ideas. There's kind of hybrid in between. We take a standard program and we add something to it. For example, falling is a pretty popular discussion right now, balance of falling, right? And we were going to have we were talking about having a falling seminar in May or March or something. Turns out the library's having one in a week, which I'm going to go to. Woodside's having one in January. So my view is Woodside had one in January and it's one here in December. We can wait a while, if forever. But I think we can consider a falling seminar different because I've had a discussion with Woodside on Friday. It's one thing to have a seminar, you come in and you listen about falling and how to avoid it, all that stuff. And then you go home and say, gee, now what do I do? And the big problem you have is that people leave these meetings with good intent, but nothing ever happens. And so my goal personally is that we want to see change made. If we get people information, make it easy for them to take action. So in the falling seminar, what we're trying to do with Woodside in January, we would copy here if we did it, is have the vendors who would help you look at your house and fix the falling issues there at the meeting. So you go through the strategy and the discussion and talk about the issues. And on your way out, you can stop by a vendor and say, hey, I'm interested. Could you come and see my house or whatever? Making it easy for the customer to actually do it. Because in sales, you find if it's easy, the customer does it. If it's hard, they don't. So our goal, I think, would be to make this hybrid system where you do a seminar and then people you would hire are there to vet. And again, we can't say we recommend them. We just say they're there. So there's the standard seminar, there's the sort of hybrid, and the third would be a special one that no one else is doing. And so we're looking for those kind of ideas. We've been some ideas that have come up, one of which actually came out of the Kensington Place one, which is to have a where do you live the rest of your life seminar, as in your home, but also if you're interested in moving, where would you move? And around here, there are a lot of people, including me and friends, who say, gee, do I really want to stay in this house? And, do the maintenance of a 1 acre or more lot. Jesus, is the time to downsize. But even that is a large effort. And then you go look at all these senior living centers and each one has different terminology. One thought was to have a senior living seminar with a discussion about what is a CRC, what's in them, what isn't in them, just the whole strategy and how it's set up. And then invite the very senior living centers in the area, to come and have a booth and say, you can drive to every one you want, but if you want to see them while they're here, walk from table to table to table and get some ideas. So that sort of thing, which isn't really done anywhere else, something unique. So anyway, you ladies should jump in and discuss this, but my view is, I think we're meeting the goal that says, yeah, there are seniors with needs. We don't want to rush out and do anything that's out there already. We don't want to spend our town's valuable time or money on stuff that's already there. So let's use what's there, but we got to get that communicated. And then if we find something that isn't there that they want, we can talk about it. So if I were to forecast what I'd like to see, in the 12 months of 2025, I'd like to have a program a month, except for the months of something in the summer and December. So you have 10 a year at the same day of the month, at the same time that day, and have the seniors know there's going to be something on that day. Most of them would be done by the library, but a few would be done by us. That would be sort of my goal. And I can't tell you what that would cost internally and money-wise until we have more discussions with the library. So that discussion would happen in January, February, probably more like February. Ladies, you want to jump in and
Make sure she has the microphone.
There's one thing that I think takes council help, and that is San Mateo County has a program that is called The Villages that they have in Palo Alto and many places. And it's a program that's designed to help seniors stay in their home. For some reason, the county of San Mateo has it in a lot of communities down to Redwood City, and then it stops. And I'm not sure why it hasn't come to Menlo Park and Atherton. But that's maybe if the council is dealing with the county, they can find out why they stopped and why it isn't offered in Atherton and Menlo Park.
Okay.
Yeah, so Ken, you and I had a conversation yesterday. I thought it was great. But, and bringing in the programs, I think is good. It will fulfill a need and things, and et cetera. But there are some seniors that also just need the basic list of who to call because I need a ride to the doctor. And I talk to those people all the time and I tell them, hey, you can get this number here, you call this number there. And they're, oh, okay, fine. And that takes care of it. But there are people that don't know. And so they're relying on neighbors. And so there should be that list. We should have it on, I believe, our website, and the library should also have it posted there too. But that's one thing. We just compile those numbers of, you know, these people that will drive you around and maybe some details, because some of them you have to actually be designated handicap, and other ones you don't have to be, but you have to ask for time, you know, et cetera. So anyway, I think,
It's more than just rides, it's a bunch of things.
yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, but I think that needs to be defined and it needs to be documented and put out.
Little House has a program for that.
Yeah, I know they do, but people don't know to call Little House. And then there's a, you know, there's not a Little House, but it's called a senior center up on Jefferson in Redwood City. It's just as close. And so both of those have things. We just need to document the phone numbers, you know, with a little detail so that the people know who to call. We could even put it on our, it could be posted in the library, it could be posted on our website, et cetera.
And that's a concept, I think, I mean, that's my concept anyway, of what's in this, the senior information center
Mhm.
inside the library.
Yeah.
So you walk in the library, there's an area with, you know, a mobile, you know, maybe starts out small, kind of mobile carts and things, couple chairs, but in it is a computer and all hardware and actual hard copies of all the things you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So it's the all singing, all dancing, you want information, go here. And there's a person at the library who's responsible for it. That would be my goal.
Many of cities do have this. They have the database and it exists on the city's website. It could exist on our kiosk in the front, like for seniors, you can click it on the kiosk. We can have periodic, you know, quarterly times where you get access to Athertonian. So my view of what this goal of this was, and I'm sure everybody's got an opinion, was that we do have this group of population and we do need to pull together for them. Other cities, when you move to a city, you get a welcome to the city brochure, and our police department has one. This is another place where you should have welcome to the city, and here's where you find these resources. So, and what I would see your group doing is helping to put that together, because that's a bit of research. Or we can decide as a council that that's something we want to do and hire help or have Anthony or whoever.
Now, when you come in.
There's a resident handbook that's provided through the police department. It's also accessible on the website, and it's got a bunch of contact information.
But Leonard was HOA gives a welcome packet to the new residents. I don't even
Only
know.
to the new residents.
See, I don't even
not
know,
the
I know
old
that there
residents.
are, I know everybody needs it, but you know, yeah.
So an update
So-
everyone would use it.
Well, we've talked
That's
about that with
something,
ADAPT as well.
Yeah, and ADAP should update what they have right now because they are in the police one and it's not up to date. So all the groups should look, if we're actually going out and handing this book, and I think that it's handed out at the time someone has a building permit or
It's
when is it
handed out to new residents that PD becomes aware of, and it's also available digitally right now on the town's website. But updating it, things in it change constantly and rapidly, so it's hard to keep the print version update. The online version can be updated more.
Yeah, a
frequently.
lot of it actually doesn't change. It's Little House has been around
Right,
forever.
that sort
The
of
the
stuff. yeah.
San Mateo County driving service has been around forever. These are things that are around, but if you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. So they need to be put in one spot and curated.
New residents are old.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's a good
So
point.
the old people aren't getting the information.
So whatever we put together can be put in multiple places. It can be on the website. It can be mailed. People can request it. So if we had access to elderly, we could say, you can request this booklet. It can be a booklet. It can be part of the police thing with links to it, and it can be in our kiosk.
It could be
So-
sent out regularly, every 5 years. Menlo Park does that.
Yeah. So
I
there's,
get a book from Menlo Park, even though I'm not in Menlo Park, but I get a book from Menlo Park
yeah.
every couple of years with all the phone numbers and, what's going on. And yeah.
Yeah, so this should be part of that information packet, which, and the other thing we used to have is we used to have a volunteer thing that you could sign up to help. You told me about this years ago, and I know my husband went and did light bulbs for a senior citizen. She needed to have her light bulbs changed. That thing should be part of this too, and that's not a resource that you would know anywhere to go unless you were somehow word of mouth. And I don't even know what happened to it. Do we still have that?
Boy, I hope so, because I'd love to use it.
Yeah. I got a
Well, Rick
couple, I
told
got
me
a
about it
couple
when I
bulbs. I got a
first got-
couple bulbs I didn't get changed too.
It's a volunteer thing. Do you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
Rick? Because you're the one who introduced me to it a long time ago. You
remember
can
you
sign up
So, yeah.
to volunteer to help people
Okay.
in our community.
Probably
And
the Little House program.
it was the cutest program ever.
Well, honestly, I listened to all of these ideas. Can I speak now?
Sure, of
Okay.
course.
I listened to all these ideas and they are really, really great ideas. And, that we need this information and to give to our seniors so that they have it on hand when they need it. And the computer, it's on the database, the website and everything. A lot of seniors don't know how to navigate the city's website. Personally, I have a little hard time with the city's website myself, finding exactly what I want when I want.
I
And
do
I
too.
know you do too?
As a non-senior.
Well, and, okay, just,
It's tricky.
okay. So it is hard. And, the thing is, a lot of seniors don't use their computers as much as most everybody else does at some time, to search that. So print is important. Ken was talking about how do we get the information of who they are and where they are. The only way you're going to do that is either do a door-to-door canvassing, right? Or mass mailing with a little survey card, saying who we are, what we're doing. We're from the town of Atherton, and we're looking for seniors to inform them so we can connect you with valuable services that are most of the time free. A lot of the stuff at Little House and Rosner House are all free and they're available to anybody. And I just don't want us to recreate the wheel here in Atherton trying to create programs for our seniors on a regular basis when that's already happening through the Menlo Park and Palo Alto and other facilities around. So I think the frustration that I was hearing from Ken's discussion was that we just don't know where the seniors are. We don't know who they are and where they are. And I think, John Maltby, you would like to say, because you know them all, don't you? No. I just want to make one correction for the record, because, and I could be wrong about this, but I thought early on that Ken said that there were 2,500 senior voters. There are 2,500 parcels in town. There are over 5,000 registered voters in our town and about 7,000 residents total. And so just to make a correction to the record, so that's not a misstatement that he made.
Can I?
Yeah. And then John wants to speak.
Yeah, I was just gonna, Robert, maybe you can give your microphone to the senior group so they can all, since you're not practical suggestion. And then I had a question
Can
to
unplug
our
them.
survey subcommittee. Do we have charged? Like, the town's spending a lot of money on a survey
Yeah.
soon. Is that in it?
It is
Like-
not, and it's something I was going to propose that very thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just
That is an
seems-
outreach, all the points that we do outreach, it's a good
Right.
idea.
However, that's another
subset,
discussion,
though.
yes, that we should talk about, because I think the company that's surveying. It's a survey that's meant to measure the desires, I guess, of the satisfaction of the town. And that is a pretty specific carve out.
Yeah, we have established there's a lot of seniors. And I think what Ken's point was that we don't know what needs
Mhm.
we could fill for seniors that aren't already being served. So that's why I'm wondering if there's a
Mhm.
survey question, not to be like, where do you live? If you're a senior, so you can be on a list. It's more, are you a senior? Is there a service that you feel the town could be, like, help solve that problem for them so that,
Do you feel that the town is
Yeah,
meeting
like-
your needs?
yeah,
That would be a
something like,
satisfaction
that's what I
survey.
meant more, so that we could help.
Yeah, we're still reviewing. He's coming back to us with his next iteration, so there's still time to maybe add that.
I can't get it. People raising their
I just
hands
want to
already.
pipe in. Could you also ask how each senior in particular wants to be connected with? You know, because everybody needs to be connected with
Right.
I
differently.
mean, mail, email,
Email,
text.
paper,
Yeah.
you know, what is your mode of
That's a general-
communication?
I think we asked,
So the,
I think
the
we asked
survey,
that,
survey has a number of questions like
just
that.
like that, yeah.
There's the basic questions like, how do you want to be contacted? Which lists all those things. What social media do you engage in, if any? It lists those sorts of things. And then where we get to the senior part of it is the demographic questions at the end of the survey. So then you can cross tabulate, are they a senior? And here's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
they
yeah.
say. Are they?
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's
So
what-
that's
We'll
have some of that.
But you need to
Let
get
John
their,
talk now.
you need to
He's
get
being very
their,
patient.
you need to
Bill.
get their permission that we'll send them emails that are related to seniors, you know, so
Mhm.
and when we're
Opt
when we're
in.
getting people to sign in to some of these seminars, it needs to say, are you willing to continue to hear from us on other things?
Well, the survey's anonymous.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, so as Ken is running these seminars and we're
Right.
advertising them with our online system, then we need to make sure that the form says, is it okay if we continue to keep you on a mailing list regarding these subjects?
Did you have people sign in for those sessions like they
Yeah,
do in
yeah, we have-
ADAPT? So you
We have
started
some people
already.
But that's
Yeah,
40, 50 people, you know, it's not.
40,
Well,
50 that we didn't
But
have
there's a
before.
lot of word of mouth. I mean,
Yes.
sometimes you
Yeah.
have to start
No,
small
no,
and
no, no,
grow.
it's, you build on that, right? That's where you start.
Okay, John, I'm going to take the ball, or the horn.
Yeah, I have just a couple of comments.
You can hold it.
Number one, I think I am here representing the senior community since I'm probably the oldest guy in the room. Number two, there was some issue of knowing where the seniors lived. I have a son who's engaged in political journalism in Denver. And so what I'm about to say may not be true in California, but he claims that in a community in Denver, for example, he could go to the county and get voter records, which could be sorted by age and address. They wouldn't give you the name, but they'd tell you the people, you know, of
Mhm.
all ages and where they live.
I-
And that would be a good start.
Yeah.
As I say, I'm
Yeah.
not sure it can be done here, but he
Right.
thinks it could be done in
I think I
Colorado.
mentioned that at one point and
Yeah.
it didn't work. Go
He's
ahead.
Go ahead,
Rick.
The other,
Okay.
the other
Running for an office.
third
We
point
have
I
so
wanted
many
to make
rules on how we're allowed to
was,
use it.
sure, there's stuff available on the website and there can be more. I go to that website occasionally and there are things labeled. Maybe there could be a great big button that says information for seniors on it, so that they could just click and get this list that's at a kiosk in the library, which they're not going to come down and read.
Okay.
Rick, were you gonna?
Get your
I've got a,
microphone, please.
it's on.
I know, but it's your turn.
No, if you get close to it, then it creates reverberation and it's
Okay, we'll see.
extremely annoying. So I guess I've got 3 points. One is, I think the subject area is really important.
Mm.
And I am certain that there are programs or different things that could be done that would benefit seniors in our town, and we know we have a lot of seniors. I'm not sure it's accurate that 25% are seniors or that the senior community is growing faster than the young community, because I think that there's a lot of young people moving into Atherton right now. I don't know where that data came from, but I think the subject matter is very important. That's number one. Number two, I think there's a bunch of issues here that aren't our issues. We don't need to know what the library is going to do. That's something to take up with the library. The library does lots of things. We don't talk to the library about what they're doing for other targeted populations, which I think they're doing a really good job with. And I love the idea of having a senior center in the library where information is available, but I don't think it needs to come before us.
Right.
And finally, the issue of trying to put together a list of seniors is a big issue. We've been trying to put together a list of residents for as long as I've been on this council, and we failed. And we're not going to put together a list of seniors. It's just not there is a way to do it. What John said, you actually will get all the names, you'll get all the ages, and you'll get all the addresses if you go to the registration list. And the registration list is publicly available. So it can be obtained. I think it costs $125 to get it, but there's about 5,000 names on that list.
Yeah.
And it gives you the age of every single person on that list, and it gives you the address of every person. So that can be sorted, and that list can be put together.
But not by the town.
But not by the town.
But not by the town.
And you have to give them a reason why you want that
Yeah, but this is a
list.
good reason.
It's intended for
Yeah.
candidates.
But it is
No,
intended.
that's only one of the intentions. There's
Yeah.
other reasons to
You
obtain
may
that list,
not
and this
get
would
it.
be a
You could
perfectly
try.
valid.
But you can't say the town
There
of
are
Atherton
restrictions on
told
the
you to
use
do
of
it.
voter registration records.
Right, there are limitations.
Yes, that's right. Well, but, okay, we can get that answer, I guess.
Because they don't want to just give lists out to just every Tom, Dick, or Harry.
I thought like you, it had to be, you had to be a candidate.
Candidate as
No,
well.
Well, you have to
there's
have a
other-
purpose.
there's-
If
you
you
have to have a
know,
purpose.
if
There's
you
other
are going
reasons.
to be managing a ballot measure, I've done that. I've gone when we were doing Measure K, Measure H,
yeah,
Measure
right.
F, and you get to have it that way, and that you have to give them your ballot measure information. I mean, it's pretty restrictive.
Don't you have to have a FP?
FPPC, well, yeah, that's if you
No?
file as a candidate.
Because ballot measures, you also.
Well,
have-
I think
Well, yeah.
I think Ken should contact them and find out.
It's easy to, yeah, they're very.
Hillary, ask for
They really
Hillary.
work with you, and they give you all kinds of
How's that take
data.
care of it?
Ask for
And
Hillary.
Lots of people have copies of the list, so
But if you-
you
but
just
as-
want an
as John
up-to-date.
said-
Yeah,
If you didn't have their actual name, it doesn't matter.
I don't think you.
As
would.
long as you got their
You're not supposed
address
to
and
share
they're,
'em.
and they're senior, that's
You're not
2/3 of the
supposed to share.
battle.
Okay.
The minute, occupant,
Dead
or alive.
Yes, you can share if it's for a proper purpose.
So Rick said that you
Oh, Rick was.
you get the names and then you can sort it by age.
And while we're talking about that, just as a quick aside, one of the issues we have is that we got a pretty good response, I think, and you guys would agree, to people getting hard copy mail
You know,
versus
he will go
getting,
on.
something, go to the web, get an email. The problem with hard copy mail is that if it comes at the wrong time of the year, your mailbox is filled with ballots and other stuff. And so your senior gets, 3 postcards and says, another one. And even the town sends out a fair number of postcards, pretty in a white kind of a background. Our thought was we create a logo for seniors in Atherton. And when you see that on a postcard, that's seniors in Atherton. That's all there is. That's for you. So that you can, when you see it in the mail, it's there. And we put up things in the library, it's got it. So we're kind of, and Bill, you'd like to know, you're our logo.
So
So
I just want to say, I just
Thank
want
you, I
to, I
appreciate
just want to
that.
second Rick's comment about the library. The library can do whatever they want to. And so I think you go forth and conquer and talk to the library and get them to, to agree to do whatever. And they'll have recommendations. I mean, they know what to do, but we don't control that.
I'm sorry, we were not asking you to do that. Sorry.
Good.
We will do
Okay.
that. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah,
We're not,
okay.
we would like your support to do it, but not to do it. Does that make
Well,
sense?
yeah.
Well, I do think the other part of it is that we've been talking about is this idea of a a bunch of information that's assembled and that's made available through all our different channels. And I do think that's the city's obligation. The two other things I want to get to before we move on to the next thing is talking about your request for money and also talking about the villages, which is a different idea, and that is an interesting one. So I would like to see if we can talk about those two, so we cover all the things that are on
Can
the
I talk about the
table.
money issue?
Yes, please.
We don't know. All we're saying is we may want to spend some money on various things. When we had our first May meeting here, we had two expenses. One was postage, which the police department paid for, and the other was the refreshments, which we paid our own money for. So the town has not yet spent any money cash, although it spent time, right?
For staff time.
And the same is true with the October meeting. That was all paid for really by Kansas City Police. So the question though is going forward, there might be some things we want to spend money on. Could be some of this database stuff, getting databases. We don't know what it is. It's not going to be a lot of money. The only quest I have is how do we do something so we don't get into the loop where it said, okay, we can ask for money, but it doesn't happen till the next time on the agenda, which is 2 months away, that sort of thing. You know, how do we do something quicker? George, you know the answer to that.
Before I answer that one, I did want to say just a few things about the council's initial direction with respect to the senior task force. As you know, we have what are called designated groups in town. Friends of the Library, Park Foundation, Art Foundation, ADAPT, the Dames, when they were still around, they were all considered designated groups. They were standalone groups. Any events and activities that they hosted, they were on their own. But there was no cost to rent town facilities other than any staff time needed for setup and takedown. If they needed it, they would have to pay that directly. And they would provide insurance to the town for their use of the particular venue. They could either buy it from the town, or most of these groups were nonprofits. They would provide it on their own if they needed it, but they had the option. The town can assist in advertising any of the activities or events they have through our own existing resources and channels. If the town co-sponsored any event such as the Easter egg hunt or Earth Day or any of the other activities that these events or groups were putting on, then the town's more involved. Then we have staff and resources and advertising, and they don't pay for any of our costs associated with that. But beyond that, the groups are on their own. The town doesn't provide any funding or any budgets for any of those particular groups. That was the initial direction. So that's what we've been struggling with as the senior task force has tried to get its feet on the ground. And so we're kind of looking for some of that scoping direction from the council this evening to make sure that we're still going that direction. Developing a senior webpage with senior resources, we can certainly compile some of that and then add anything the senior task force comes up with to that, as long as they're not making recommendations and referring people to particular resources or vendors. Connecting with the villages, those are all nonprofit groups that I believe have been formed that are in 3 different areas, and that might be why they're not down here yet. It's just not a group formed to be the host for that down here. And in terms of getting money, if the senior task force were to come to the city council and say, we have a program we want to sponsor this next fiscal year, it's going to cost us $3,500. We'd like a budget for that. That's up to the council whether you want to do that or not.
Well, I
But
think
that's
that's
how
what
you
Kevin was going to
get that
ask
money.
for.
So you're on a case by case basis.
Mhm.
Okay.
Unless you direct otherwise.
No, it's fine. It's fine if you can do it quickly.
I think that was very well said. I completely agree with that. I think that the senior task force group should be treated like each of those other groups.
Designated.
And I'm not supportive of allocating a blank amount of money without knowing what it's going to be used for.
No.
If there's a reason to come to us because there's an appropriate council funded activity like we do with Earth Day or like we do with some of the other specific things like we did with the kids' Easter egg hunt, those kinds of things, those are good things and they're really important to our community. And I absolutely believe there could be something like that focused on seniors that could be very interesting, although I'm more inclined to think it's the kind of program things like you guys have brought up that are more appropriate for seniors. And I think something on falling is at the top of the list. But I don't think those are things the council needs to be involved with.
Right.
That's an outside group type of activity.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and I believe that that's what Ken was saying. He'll come up with some things and he'll bring them back when he needs to. He has nothing specific to bring to us today except for his ideas and where he's trying to go, which I thought it was presented fairly well.
But my question, I guess, to George is, let's assume we found something that said, we need to do this under this timeframe, and we want to propose something that the council would support. How long does that take?
If you, or as an example, if the event is in November, you want to get it on the council agenda in October.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. It's not 6 months, it's a month. Done, thanks.
Can't they come to any meeting and make comment at the beginning of the meeting?
but
Just
you can't take action.
Agendize.
that they can start the process
Yeah.
that way. Okay.
It could.
Okay, thanks.
Can't give the money unless it's on
Right.
an
It
agenda.
has to-
We're
But
on the
they can
same
start
page.
the process.
Is that fair with you guys?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
We're on
you
that.
all.
That's fair, yeah. Good.
Right.
Okay.
Need
Yeah,
to
thank
move
you
on.
for what you guys are
Couple
doing.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Okay, we need to
Thanks.
move on.
Thank you.
All right, where are we now?
Where we're on Magic Bridge / convention.
Provide feedback and direction regarding the Holbrook Palmer Park
Stick from Magic
Playground
Bridge. Thank you,
Improvement
guys.
Project. And we have Robert, who's going to do Public Works Director, give us a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As you indicated, we're looking for feedback and direction with regards to what type of playground you would like to see happen at Holbrook Palmer Park. I'm going to briefly walk you through the staff report and then walk you through kind of the design alternatives that we have and the proposals that we have from with regards to both the conventional playground and the Magical Bridge playground. You'll have an opportunity to ask me questions. If I can't answer them, we have our consultant team with Interwest to answer questions on the conventional proposal and representatives from Magical Bridge here that might be able to answer questions on their proposal. And so just to be a brief background, we started last year in the capital improvement program with funding for the design of the playground. As part of that process, through the Park and Rec Committee, we developed a public outreach survey to ask our residents what features they like, don't like, what's fun, what they'd like to see in the playground, et cetera. We got approximately 123 individual responses, and they ranked things with regards to playability and preferences and feedback. And that information was presented to the Park and Rec Committee, and I believe you received an update on the survey directly at the council level as well. That information was digested by our consultant team and in working with a subcommittee from the Park and Recreation Committee to develop a couple of conceptual alternatives of what that playground might look like. With that, we held an open house at Holbrook Palmer Park to get feedback and preferences. We had images up and people were able to take stickers and indicate, I like this one, or I like that one, or I like this element from this one, please put it here. And so we got that kind of feedback. And while we were at that outreach meeting, we were approached by Magical Bridge with some interest in the playground. Staff and members of the Park and Rec subcommittee met with Magical Bridge to get more information about what they do, how they do it, and ultimately the Magical Bridge provided a proposal to do a conceptual design of what Magical Bridge type playground would look like at Holbrook Palmer Park. It had an estimated cost of about $40,000. As that was being discussed as an option, one of our town residents offered to fund that conceptual design. So Magical Bridge, without cost to the town, developed a conceptual design of a playground to be compared to the conventional type design that we were headed towards. As that design was developed, it was presented to both the Park and Rec subcommittee and the overall committee for review and feedback. Some general feedback with regards to their design was provided at that time. And then there were also questions as to how a conventional playground might be tweaked to be a little more accessible, and whether or not there's a midway point in terms of can you kind of amalgamate the two options. And from the Magical Bridge perspective, it was indicated that it's either for them to participate, it would have to be a fully inclusive design. So through the subcommittee, the conventional design was refined, and Magical Bridge also refined their concept a little bit. Both options were reviewed by the subcommittee, and the subcommittee evaluated them and came up with a recommendation to the full committee, which was heard at the last Park and Recreation Committee with regards to what the preference was.
Sorry, and I don't hate to,
Yeah.
who was the subcommittee?
The subcommittee actually is here today. You have
People with
Alex
children
Key.
or any educators that are involved? Who were
Well, we have
Okay.
a range. We have 2 seniors and 1 parent with a young child.
one parent with a young child?
I believe they've had children too.
They've had children and grandchildren.
Okay.
Okay, so
no.
I will say throughout this process, we had meetings at the Park and Recreation Committee. There was opportunities for public input, and a lot of public input was received. And so there were many members of the public, both in written and oral presentation, indicated support towards the Magical Bridge option. Ultimately, the recommendation from the subcommittee and the recommendation from the full committee was towards the conventional type playground. The conventional playground would be fully funded by the town within the allocated budget that was given. I think the construction budget that was allocated in this current fiscal year is $1 million. The original proposal from Magical Bridge included a funding partnership where the town would contribute the allocated $1 million from the capital improvement program, and they would raise the balance of funds required to build the conceptual design that they had. At the time, the full estimate was about $3.5 million for overall project, with a construction budget of about $2.2 million. Subsequent to that proposal was revised to, I'll call it a donation to the town of a playground. So they would raise the funds, they would do the full design in coordination with the town, including some public outreach on the conceptual to make sure that they got some public feedback, working it through the Park and Rec Committee, ultimately the council for approval on that final design. They would have raised the money, they'd hire the contractor, they would build the playground and donate it to the town. So that is their latest proposal.
Is there a timetable under which they would achieve that? Or if they fall short, I mean, we don't want to wait forever. Is it like
Yeah.
they'll raise it within a year or? they're gonna take-
Actually, I think that their intent was to get it done faster than that. So right now, I'll get into a few more details, but right now is one of those windows for donation that they really target. And so we're approaching the end of the year. So I would presume, and they can answer later on, that if that were the direction that the council wants to go, they would do a significant outreach for donations to catch end of year type donations, be able to move forward, get the design done while they get the rest of the funds.
But if they didn't get it within a period of time, we would be able to decide which way we want to go.
So, well, I think that,
Bound. Or would we be?
well, I think that if you choose to go that direction, I mean, the intent is to give them time to raise the funds,
Right.
get the design completed with a target for when the project gets implemented.
Right, but just like we had funds, we had goals of raising money for this facility here and it went on for a long time and we didn't make our number. So there's got to be a drop dead time and say, okay, we're going to go back to the council and the council will decide which way they're
Yeah,
going to go.
and that's the prerogative of the council to decide on that timeframe.
There was one proposed in here. There was
Yeah,
one
so
starting in
their
October already.
mid-range, their
Yeah.
cost-sharing proposal did have a target outline. And it was basically within a year, all the money would be raised and they would be able to build.
Yeah, but we don't want a cost sharing one. I mean, the
Well, like I
attractiveness was
said,
there.
right now, the proposal, they've gone beyond the cost sharing to say they'll raise it and they'll build it.
Within a year.
And so that's kind of the general overview of how we got to where we are today. And so at this point, if it's okay, I'll walk you through some of the design options. And you'll have the opportunity to ask questions about the layouts, make suggestions or comments as to what you like and don't like on both alternatives. And then ultimately, again, we'll be looking for some direction as to which direction you want us to go.
Robert, do you prefer to do your whole thing and we save our questions to the end, or do you want us to ask questions as you go?
It's at your pleasure.
Do people have a preference? It's better for you to just present it, but then we have to remember our questions. So are we okay to be
So-
polite and let him finish and not interrupt him?
Are you walking us through like the maps?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do, if you have questions on the staff report, I can answer them now. I will walk you through each of the design proposals and you should ask questions on that design and not wait till I go to the next one to go back to the first, if that makes sense.
I think at some point we should hear from the subcommittee.
As well, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if the council would rather hear from them and hear what their ideas are before you hear the proposals, so you can think about their ideas as you go through the proposals, or if you want their summary after you hear the proposals.
Do you want to take questions on the big picture perhaps? Because I do have questions short of the design, like the procedure now, like we have equipment that's sitting there. Will our park be in use the whole time until the day that we go and pull it out? And does it make a difference if we do it with our standard ones versus doing it with one that's big? And it's much bigger. So I'm trying to understand some of the building process. And you're building hills, you're changing elevations, which is going to have to be doing mounds. You're shaking your head. How are you doing the mounds? They're not there.
Okay.
But it's
so,
very, but anyway,
so,
yeah, the procedure, I guess I'm
Okay,
asking.
so right now, we're going through the design process. The park and playground are open. It'll stay that way until a construction contract either by us or Magical Bridge starts. And then I would
Playground has to shut down.
anticipate that that whole area will be fenced off
Yeah.
and not accessible by the public during construction. And there will be the need for different types of equipment to go back and forth to get to that area to do work. So similar to, but not to the same degree as when we did the circulation project, where work was happening, people could not be. And so through the duration of that construction, which isn't necessarily going to be super long,
Yeah.
people won't be able to use the playground because it'll be under construction.
But the rest of the park will be available.
Yeah.
And to add to that, Scott Harrison with Interwest, that even when a contract is executed, it's not like the park will be fenced off and closed down. The schedule will work backwards from when equipment is ordered and delivered, so that you're doing all the site work so that you're right as the equipment date is delivered and shipped, you'll be ready for that equipment to be installed, just so that the shutdown period is not extra long. It'll be worked backwards from that estimated delivery date.
Any other questions, big picture, short of the design? Go ahead.
I have a construction request. Could we have a viewing area for kids to see this being
Oh,
built?
that's awesome. I love it.
Like we at Burgess Park, they just redid
Mhm.
their playground and we go to gymnastics there. So we're there every week. And so my son and I would go watch, but we were looking through like a crack of the
Mhm.
fabric. So I just like, there's construction trucks. It's cool. So, and I think it's a fun way to get people
Love it.
excited about whatever we end up building, but I'm sure there's a lot of
that's-
safety reasons around having it fully not visible, but you could still make it fun for kids.
Absolutely.
Even
There,
when
there
there's
there are
no-
probably ways to do that.
Love it. Anybody else have any other bigger questions? Yes, you want to go ahead with your design?
If you wouldn't mind waiting.
We should hear from the subcommittee and the park people.
Before he goes through the
Okay.
design stuff or after?
I think if you hear from them before, then you'll think about what they had to say as you hear the proposals and you can weigh the difference. But
All right,
it's up to
I'm fine
you.
with that. Does the
I've heard it.
subcommittee want to go first? Are you okay with that, Robert?
What's that?
There was a suggestion that we let the subcommittee talk about their view and why they made their recommendations before you go into the details. So we'll know what their thought process is when we see it.
Oh, we have
Can I
this
ask
in
a
our,
question about
This is
that?
something new
Yeah,
that I
sure.
mentioned.
That's some-
Yeah, so
There's-
are they going to talk
So
about
I-
the first offer from,
Well, that's
or
kinda
the
weird.
the second offer?
Yeah,
That's
they
fully
met
funded?
since.
Because
So-
I think the presentation was made before.
So let me just make
I see.
one,
Okay.
let me just make one point of clarification. The offer for full funding came after the Park and Rec Committee met and deliberated.
See, that's what I thought.
And so they did not have an opportunity to deliberate on, well, it's a free park or not. It was conventional versus partnership with Magical Bridge and that, and the flux between timelines and other issues. But I say, the meeting is your opportunity for, how do I put it? Education, and it's at your pleasure as to when you ask the subcommittee to provide you feedback and whether or not you'd like additional information. If I misrepresented something for Magical Bridge, to have them comment on their high-level proposal.
Robert, why don't you just go ahead with your presentation?
Okay.
Can I ask, has the subcommittee talked since since Magical Bridge has adopted their presentation? Like
No.
the subcommittee? Okay.
No, you say no.
No, so pretty much it came as we were putting
Okay.
the packages together for you.
so I guess we don't know how influenced they would be by the.
So then why don't you do your presentation and you guys can
Yeah,
talk
because
about that.
You did it when we were.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to start with the conventional. Anthony, I don't have sharing capacity.
You do now.
Oh. Okay, we'll try again. Awesome.
These going to be the charts that you had in the pack?
Yeah, most of this stuff is in the package. So what I have here is the general footprint of the conventional design to go through first.
Right.
And I'm trying to here. So the first thing I want to highlight is currently, as you look at the playground approaching from the parking lot or looking at it from the bathroom perspective, the little kids area is to the right and the older kids area is to the left. This proposal flips that. So you'll have the 2 to 5 on the left and the 5 to 12 area on the right.
Where's the bathroom to orient? to what I'm-
Orient, the bathroom is to the right of the picnic table.
There's a
Oh,
picnic
over
table.
here.
It's the bottom of the page. You see that yellow path that
It's
goes
right
down and
So
ends?
here,
That's
if
towards
you
the
look on the
bathroom.
screen, it's,
Yeah,
oops.
It's not included, although we need to fix it. And that's not included in this, right?
What's that? No, the bathroom is
Fixing-
not part of today's
Just trying to
conversation.
orient myself to where
Yeah,
this
so
map
from
is.
an orientation perspective, the playground is right, if you look at the screen right there where the mouse is.
That's where
Oh, sorry, the bathroom is where the mouse is.
Bathroom is where the mouse is. Okay.
Yeah,
now
and
I
so
got it.
what you have there, the shaded area that goes across and goes down is the existing decomposed granite pathway.
Got it.
And so in the middle, what we would have is a shaded seating area
Yeah.
with some log type benches, a couple of sail shade structures. And the tot area would be completely fenced in. So currently our Todd area is fenced and the older kids area is not. And so that would still be the case. So we have a entry gate, a log, climb through log feature. I'm going to zoom in just to kind of make this a little duo spinner, which is a two-seater that kind of spins around. A couple of swings over to the left, a small play structure with a couple of slides, climbing logs, and a couple of other appurtenances. And then a little playhouse, some benches and other things in the Todd area. I see a hand.
Yeah,
raised.
so I noticed that on this chart, there are little handicap places. So I assume these are the places that there was a request to go back and then make them more accessible. Is that?
Well, overall, there was a request to try and make things more accessible. And so we attempted to do that in a number of ways. The surfacing, I'm going to say the Morpheus shape right now in that Todd area is the what's called poured in place rubber. So it'd be rubberized surface. And then outside of that is the engineered wood fiber. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But what we had working through the subcommittee, we tried a couple of different iterations, including trying to revise that structure so that it had ramps to go up to it. And it had a significant impact on footprint and height. And so there's a limitation on grades. And since the space is small, if you try and ramp it up, it really has an impact on that slide structure. And you'll see something in the Magical Bridge layout that kind of shows what that ramping does.
Okay.
And so there's transition platforms for that that play structure. There's the adaptive expression swing and a tot bucket swing.
Can you possibly show us the pictures? Because when you
I'll get-
say it,
I'll
so
get
we'll
there
know
in a
what they
second.
are?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in this design here, you also have a sand play area with a couple of seated digger machines for the kids.
Oh, that's what those things were. Okay. I was wondering what they were.
Yeah. So they're like little claw digger things that the kids can operate, scoop up and move.
Do you close the sandbox?
Huh?
Is the sandbox closable?
The sandbox.
Sealable at night.
Sealable,
so
it
that-
is not sealed.
Yeah,
It is
Mrs.
just
Knox
open.
wrote us a letter about that.
It's within the fenced area, but it's not like we're covering it or we're not proposing to cover it or close
Are
it.
we subject to the same rules that that they are in terms of sanitary?
I don't believe so.
You're talking about the play school?
The play school
Yeah,
said
we-
that at public schools, you have to have it covered because animals go in and poop in it. So, yeah. And it passes on diseases. So if you have like a plaything, it has a lid.
Yeah, we don't have that proposed here. And then in the older kids area, it is a much larger structure than what we have now. And we'll go into what that looks like in a minute. A spinner that is wheelchair accessible, so wheelchair can sit on it and spin. I think these are tandem swings on one side, a disc swing on the other. Log climbing structures and balance beams, shaded benches, et cetera.
That swing is a zero G swing that's ADA seat, similar to what's out there now. It's not a disc swing.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so this here is an image of the older kids area. And so here on the left, you can see this is that spin table with seats and in space for wheelchair. This is a 2-level high slide. Here is your transition platform that was illustrated. There's a set of stairs on this side and other climbing climbing items on the backside. Here is the image of the swings. Again, benches on the backside.
The swings on the right over there, they have these ones right here. Well, how do you sit on that?
It's in
What-
your packet. You can see
Yeah, I
it
know,
over
I
there.
can't.
Yeah.
Even when you look at it, how do you sit on it? Do you sit on the bottom? It's
It's
two.
So
kind
the-
of a
is it?
two-person
The
setup.
tandem.
So
Yeah,
two
you can-
people sit facing each other?
Yeah.
Yeah, or not facing each other, but it's built for, you can swing with one person, but also like grandparents and, you know, whoever's with their kids, you can sit on that and swing back and forth with two people. And this, just to point out, this rendering doesn't show, it shows tot seats over there on the other side, that it would be one bench
doesn't
swing
show the-
there. And then, yeah, it would be that ADA seat swing that's similar to what's out there now on that 5 to 12 area.
Okay, so on the backside of the structure, again, climbing elements, which was one of the items that residents had indicated a preference for in the surveys. Monkey bar type setup, and again, more climbing features on this play structure.
So is the climbing where that kid is starting to climb up, is that enclosed so that he can't fall or?
Enclosed.
Well,
No.
Okay, so he can drop off and fall backwards on that.
Fall backward. I
The
mean,
white shirt climbing up the stairs.
Yeah, he could.
He could,
This
he could
one?
fall.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That could be a falling area. Okay. I just wanted to know. And there's your special treated wood there.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Not. the
yeah, so I
rubber.
mean, everything in this is fall zone compliant. So that and so the green area there color is the color is fully optional for everything. So you can tell us you like it, don't like the color, want something different. That's all doable. So you have the poured in place rubber, and then you also have the engineered wood fiber, step stones, logs, etc. And then this is an image looking through the tot area. And so we said that there's a smaller play structure on the left here. You have the climb through log on the right, musical pedal thing here in the middle. And then behind it, this is that duo spinner where a couple of kids can sit on it and spin around. And then here's another image again of that play structure. The limits of the poured in place rubber are just illustrative here. And then there's a little playhouse in the corner. Again, an image of the climbing log or the crawl through log. And so as depicted here, the consultant team and the manufacturer saying that all of this is should be doable fully within the budget that we have. We did ask what the extra cost would be to put the entire tot area as poured and placed rubber, and they said that would be roughly another $39,000.
39,000.
39,000 for just that expanded area. And so that extends us beyond our current budget. So can scale things down to put in more poured in place rubber, or increase the budget to put more poured in place rubber, or keep kind of the balance that the Park and Rec Committee has to try and maximize that space while maximizing play value.
Well, did Game Time say what they would take out to get it to be within budget with all poured in place?
I think it would be scaling down structures and things. So it's, I think, and we've gone through Interwest and the Park and Rec Subcommittee. We went through a variety of iterations to try and find a balance. And so this is kind of where we landed.
Are
So
these
just-
all, go ahead.
Just the poured in place is to accommodate wheelchair accessibility to all of the play structures.
So everything is wheelchair accessible if
Mhm.
it's maintained properly. So we have to make sure that there's enough wood fiber. But there are preferences and some people like the poured in place
Mhm.
rubber better. It's just a lot more expensive.
But the images that I'm looking at, it seems like you can, with the port in place that you have, rubber that you have identified here, you can really,
Yeah,
have
so like I
access
said, we
to
tried to
all of them.
maximize the access. There are certain
Yeah.
things that you will have to go across the
yeah,
the wood
maybe
fiber
these
to get
swings.
to some of the
these
swings,
dual
to the
swings.
backside of the play structure,
Yeah.
to the playhouse, et cetera.
This is
And we
not-
positioned that PIP to make it to where wheelchair can get to all of those, like ADA swings and the duo spinners and the transfer platforms and the inclusive whirls, so that it is easier.
I want to say that core and play also is just safer for everybody. When you fall down on the bark, you hurt yourself. So this is
Isn't
way
this
safer.
specially engineered bark? That's not the kind of tan bark that you're talking
Well,
about.
most of the stuff that are parks now, when you fall on it, it's not the same as these other surfaces. Stacy?
Yeah.
I have
and-
strong
and-
feelings about tan bark.
And
Like tan bark?
and you will take
I
some
don't like
home
tan
with you.
bark.
Eat it.
No,
Yeah.
but this isn't tan bark.
I have strong feelings about this engineered wood that they put
Oh,
in
okay.
playgrounds. That
Alright.
is tan bark, but it's fancy tan bark. It's supposed to be no splinters. I have a splinter in my hand right now from no splinter tan bark. So it also is disgusting. Like hair gets stuck in it. It's so gross. Like beyond the fact that it actually gives splinters and it's disgusting.
Well-
And it's also something that people can trip on and there's a lot of safety components to it. So I have very strong not liking tan bark feelings, which is why Robert was staring at me the entire time he was talking.
No,
about
which is why I said is that I gotta say,
Have a little
we
sample.
went through a few iterations and we
Have a
did
little
ask
sample?
how much more it would be.
Yeah,
And so it would be,
9,000.
and that's
the
just
tot
for
area.
the tot area. And it would be even more for the other side.
I have another
Um,
question.
And so that's a
Bigger
preference
kids.
question for the council is that where do you want the budget to land? If this is the direction that you want to go, where do you want the budget to land?
Well, this is just.
Well,
one
we're
we-
just talking
we
about
don't
this
know.
one
Options,
first.
right?
Yeah.
Questions.
So.
I have
it-
questions about this design.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through the shade components of this? Because I see the shade over the benches in the middle, but it looks like the tot area has no shade from what I can tell and very little over the big kid side of it. So maybe I'm not reading this.
So there are a couple of things that are not illustrated very well. So I'm going to go first back to the overview and then I'm probably going to pull up a Google image.
Okay.
Right. So on your general overview, there are trees that are there that are not really depicted. And one of the reasons why we flipped it is because now there is more natural shade on what is the older kids area versus the tot area. And so we thought we would be able to take advantage of that natural shade. So there aren't really any major sale structures, but we can probably figure a way to move one from one place to another if we wanted to add a little more shade, because shade was one of the items that people really requested.
Yeah.
The structure has a couple of shade things on them,
Overhangs and stuff.
overhangs
Yeah.
above it. So because of that, most of the additional shade structures are actually in what is now the tot area to be the older kids area. And so we have, particularly associated with seating, we have a sale structure back here with the benches, another one over here. There is a tree here. I don't think it's very big. And there's another tree here. And then over this middle seating area again is a shade structure. If you want, I can try and pull up Google Earth or Google and you can see what the
Yeah.
tree
I
shades
can see
are.
the outlines of the trees. I was just,
Yeah.
I just
So,
think that that's not a huge issue. And I think that once it's built, you can always add shade, sails and things.
a lot of
If
times the
it's-
shade structures are built into the playground structures, like posts that go up to go from the middle and
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it.
And
a
we
lot
had
of
those in there at
places-
one point. We did have, in the very beginning, we had some shade structure. Any of these bigger shade, play features can have the shade off the top that comes as well. But we did, we felt like that younger area on that side has a lot of natural shade, like Robert said, and it is really shaded. And in the survey, it seemed like the shade requests were a lot for spectators and people sitting there. And this bigger structure it is 12 foot tall, and then the shade top part is taller for shade in that area. But yeah, just with the price and the budget, these were the area that we put sails and stuff.
Is there shade on the slides? Because if you go on a slide that's been sitting in the sun, you melt your butt, basically,
Kids.
I
turn
still
into
have the scars.
Just at the
though.
top.
just at the top. So you're still, when you get down to the bottom, you got the heat part at the end.
Oh, my God.
Way
Yeah,
usually-
I have
Yeah,
another.
but those are things we can fix. So
Yeah,
that's the kind of
those should
subtle
be
human
fixed.
factors, things that we should pay attention
All
to.
been scarred by that.
Can I go
at one
back
time,
to the building the materials again?
Especially when they used
Short,
to be made out
short of
aluminum.
doing the poured, that's kind of like it's this spongy thing. I've seen in parks where they have more shredded material, which is maybe cheaper than the poured, but it's not bark. It's still made of rubber, the same stuff, but it's shredded. Did you guys research if those are cheaper or available or?
They cost in between.
They're-
So
Yeah.
the cheapest surfacing is going to be that engineered wood fiber. The poured in place is on the upper end. And then the shredded rubber, and I think there's a couple of different types of materials. They fall pretty much in the middle.
In the middle.
terms
So
of
there may
cost.
be an alternative. The other question I wanted to ask is, did we look at all about state laws coming down about rubber surfaces? Because I know they're trying to get rid of a lot of turfs, a lot of artificial turfs, and they're making laws that are going to come on board so we won't be able to use those. And a lot of cities have actually banned them already. I don't know if these fall in that category because they're made of recycled rubber. Did anyone look at that to see that we don't put something in and then 2 years from now we have to rip it out because it's environmentally leaking and
I think that most of the laws as they come down is towards new construction. They won't make you rip things out,
They
but
can't push
to our-
it, take
to-
it out. It's the
to
permanent
my
top.
knowledge, I haven't heard
want to put it in.
anything
That's what I'm saying.
with regards to the removal of that. And I see in the corner of my eye, somebody raising her hand. But I haven't heard that the rubberized surfacing was being
It
outlawed.
was AstroTurf was the stuff. Do you know something you want to say? Do you?
The synthetic grass, and a lot of times those have been controversial, but I know Santa Clara County has put some limits on. I think that if people are going to make a comment, we need to be able to hear it and it needs to be
Oh, yeah.
able to
Sorry,
be
you need
heard.
to.
Just
you-
pull the mic
And
closer.
so, you
See
have
the
to have
microphone
a-
because we're recording it for people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That it's the
Yeah.
infill. And so
It just-
it has been controversial, but there is a lot of studies that I shared with the group that it is safe for this particular purpose as far as, playgrounds and so on, that you're not in a car breathing it nonstop. It's in an outdoor facility and so on. So it's safer than perhaps you might have heard or read.
okay,
Can I ask another question about this
as many
design?
as you want.
Just buckle in, people.
Yeah.
I don't see any like picnic tables or like table structures in this design. I'm seeing a lot of like benches. Are the things in the middle that are log benches, are those tables?
No, but we can swap one or two of those out. We do have a picnic table outside. I think that there were mixed comments that came through from
Yeah.
public in terms of picnic tables and whether they should be located inside or outside. And so it was through consultation through the subcommittee, it was decided we didn't really want them in the middle of the play area.
In the middle or
that right?
what about the
Sorry.
At the
periphery?
last
Yeah.
meeting, there was discussion about substituting in a couple picnic tables.
Yeah, and that may be.
I didn't hear that opinion. from-
It may be here in that center location, but not in the playground.
No, I think that's right.
In the
Yeah,
center.
so what I'm
Yeah,
saying,
Right,
in-
right.
in the
not
playground,
you wouldn't.
We don't want
No,
them,
but in
but
that
in that
central area.
central area,
Yeah.
we could do that.
It's easy to do.
Yeah.
There is an ADA picnic table there on the outside that, you could have one or two there. And then like Robert said, the middle portion where those log benches are, those are just double-sided log benches. You could sit and face either way. You could have, a picnic table in there. We did have a smaller tot picnic table in the smaller area, but there was mixed comments going back and forth with all the different renditions.
Can I ask you guys to move to the table and join us and
Eh.
get your mics?
I have
Because
more
if you want to
questions
say
about
something, you
tables.
should be able to say it so we can all hear.
So, okay. So are we saying there's just one table right now? I'm just thinking like,
Mhm.
this isn't gonna be a great playground. People are gonna have birthday parties here.
Mhm.
Where are they
Order
gonna sit?
pizza.
Or like
Picnic
someone wants to have
area
dinner.
to the right.
So that's, okay, so there is a picnic.
We have
area.
our
We're getting rid
brand,
of a lot of that
Many
area.
You don't want
So-
to bring food in there. it'll
so
attract
we
people.
have our brand new picnic area that we just built as part of the.
But isn't that part of that's getting taken over by these
No.
designs, right?
No.
No?
No,
That's to the right.
it's to the right of this image.
Okay, got it.
But
And so there's a lot of seating associated. If you're having a picnic, if you're having a birthday party, you should be getting
Should be
a day use
reserving.
permit.
Yeah.
I know.
Reserving
That's
the
why I'm like,
picnic
why are we getting
area.
rid of our revenue, guys? Okay, and then my next question, why is the big kid area not fenced in?
I'd say for a few reasons. So the first one is going to be cost. The primary on fencing in is focused on the tot area.
That survey had that as well. That
And-
one.
And so the overall preference was to fence in the tot area and not the entire thing, because even if you did the entire thing, you'd probably have another fence in between the tot and the older
Big
one.
kids, yeah.
Well, I'll answer it a little differently. People really wanted the tot area fenced in because that will control those kids who sometimes run off and aren't, and they're little. So there's a danger there. The older kids run off and they're always running off anyway. And there wasn't a demand to fence in the older kids area at all. In fact, people wanted, the most common comment is they wanted that open. So because the kids come in from all kinds of directions. And whereas in the tot area, they have to come in through a gate. It's very limited how to get into the tot area. That helps parents who have both a young child, 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, and a toddler, that they can manage both of them, and that's fairly common.
Bill, go ahead.
So, in the current playground, there's that semicircular area with those handprints. Where are they?
No, that's
Because-
outside this.
That's outside. So it's
right
on
That's not
this
changed.
lower.
Okay. All right, no
Left
problem.
corner.
Because when we brought that up,
That was being somewhat impacted by a piece of the Magical Bridge proposal,
Mhm.
but nobody's changing that. That's staying where it is.
Yeah, because the input from the people, especially who have their kids' handprints
Yeah,
there.
don't touch it.
Do not take it out.
It's not.
And nobody, in both proposals, nothing's happening to it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Are all the pieces of equipment from the same vendor? And who is Game Time? Are they, and who was the designer of this?
All right, so we have our consultant, Interwest, who is managing the design. And through the process, reached out to several manufacturers to help kind of tune things in. And Game Time is a sub of a bigger play manufacturing company. I think it's called Playcore. And they were, I'd say, probably the most responsive in terms of trying to get things back and forth and tweaked, because there were a lot of different tweaks as this thing went through its iterations. And so they're a playground manufacturer, and they're the ones that kind of draw these things up.
So who was the design? Is anyone in Interwest a playground designer or no? They're not a playground designer.
I'm going to say that Scott, who is our project manager, used to be a park and rec director for a locality, I think in Florida. Scott, is that correct?
Yeah, the city of
And so
Parkland.
he's been involved in redesigning and managing several playgrounds. So we
So-
have him as our project manager.
So are all the pieces from one vendor or did you say?
For the conventional at this point in
Yes.
time, yes.
So this is literally all just one vendor.
The conventional design, yes.
You didn't look at any,
We looked at 5 different companies. And
Yeah.
like I said, Game Time seemed to be the most responsive to our needs.
A lot of, yeah, and a lot of the manufacturer companies for these types of projects, they do the design, and I mean design by concepts, these 3D renderings, and they work with cities. But we've gone through for the past year on a lot of different changes, and we have had people fall off, and it has been back and forth. And Game Time from the very beginning was like responsive within like day periods and getting stuff right back to us. And they're one of the biggest. We did have landscape structures and we used some wood timber form. We had them involved for a little while. So Game Time has anything and everything that all of them have in custom pieces and has sub companies and Playcore and those types of things. So it's coming through one purchase, and it would be Game Time and Playcore and those types of.
did they provide the 3D drawings too?
Yeah.
So this is all from a one vendor.
Again, for the conventional, that's one vendor. And then as we go through the other design, that's a different alternative. And I think designed by a landscape architect.
Okay.
Any more questions on the conventional before we move over?
So can you talk me through the shade of the big kid area one more time? Because I see it over the benches, but there's nothing over the playground, or is there something is that like hexagon shade
Yep.
inside?
So
the-
here, if you look at it, the biggest part of the shade is the top, and this renders shade down underneath it. Oops.
But the bulk of the structure doesn't appear to be shaded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many people did you talk to about the fencing thing? I'm just sorry. I have a 4-year-old. I don't have like a very big kid, but he would be in the big kid side of it.
Mhm.
And he's 4 years old. I would feel a lot more comfortable if this whole thing was fenced in. And I know a lot of people who have multiple ages where they have someone like my son who's 4 who'd want to be in the big kid, but they have a baby. So they have to be with the baby with the toddler, might feel more comfortable with the whole thing fenced in. A lot of the playgrounds I go to are entirely fenced in, including the big kid area. So was this a thing that was requested that people with large kids don't like fencing, or like, I have only leveled up to 4. So talk me through that.
Do we have
Safety
fencing now?
component.
We don't have fencing.
We have
now.
fencing
do have
around the tot
fencing.
area.
Hot area now. We don't have fencing on.
Yeah,
Is
but
it fencing at Burgess?
Burgess has fencing.
Yeah, around the whole area.
Neelan
They're
Park
on a
has,
very busy street.
Neelan Park has fencing. The
Yeah, they're on a
Rinconada
busier
Park
street, too.
has
They're on a very
fencing.
busy street. I mean, they have
Granada Park
cars
has-
driving by.
Fencing, and just a lot of playgrounds have.
They do because you have a nanny
Fencing.
that's like this.
Right, or like you have multiple
Whole
kids.
time.
So I'm just like,
I
I'm just,
like the fence. I'm with
I'm
Stacy on-
wondering, I'm assuming it's very expensive, so I'm just would like to understand this thought process a little bit more.
So I can speak for myself and why I didn't think fencing around the big kid area was needed is the big kids often defeat the fence.
Yeah, they climb
protection,
over
'cause
it.
they'll open it up and leave it open and they won't close it. So it's, yeah, because they can use the fence. They know how to use the double two-handed fence, and then they leave it open. And the one in Neelan Park used to auto close, but it broke, and now they just use a conventional one.
Yeah.
And so it didn't seem to be like it would be an effective long-term solution. So we said, might as well leave it off. At least that was my thinking.
Yeah.
And you have children that play in the park.
Yes, one child.
I keep thinking you had another one.
If I do, that would be a surprise.
Wait till you get home.
Any other questions on
Okay.
on this first one? All right.
Was something that came up during one-on-ones was a potential for play tables, not picnic tables, but play tables
Yes.
to address a senior component that might be in a
multi-generation, which-
playground like chess or checkers or those sorts of
Yeah.
things in the conventional design.
So in a previous rendition, next to where this picnic table is outside of where the restroom is, we did have a couple of those as optional features. And I think it was a chess or checkers table with a couple of seats.
I
Yeah,
thought we
I
were
think
going to
that-
have chess and checkers out here in the City Hall area. We
That'd be
talked about
cute.
that also years and
But
years
you'd have
ago.
to have
How
somebody
cool that
check
would
this
be.
stuff out.
Yeah,
Well,
front
I
desk.
think, well,
Have a staff member there checking it in and out.
so I think all we would do,
Own.
if we had it, all we would do is
Bring
have the
your
table.
own.
People would either bring their own.
Okay,
or
got
other-
it. Bring your own. I'm happy with bring your own.
I
I'm
think-
not happy with having a staff member having to do
No,
things
Can't
like
do that.
clean the water
Yeah.
items or
Oh.
pick
Well-
up and store away the big giant chess things.
This is a staple of parks in Europe. And I think that one thing I think I'm hearing is that our senior people requested this in the past when there were discussions about this. And I think that a multi-generation component is really important in my opinion.
Having a table or bring your own is fine.
Okay.
I have one last question about the traditional. Can I start giving feedback on this design? Just like design specific feedback?
It would be
Or are
more
we going
valuable.
back?
I'm going to say it would be more valuable to get that feedback if that's the direction we're
Okay.
going.
Just curious. That's fine.
Meaning that if you can provide the feedback.
Pick a lane and then get into the weeds is what you're saying? Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I guess
That's
that's what
why
I'm
I was asking. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay.
But thank you,
Okay.
George, for mentioning the multi-generation, because I do think that's important. And we got that feedback from other groups.
Okay.
No matter which one we do, that should be part of it.
Okay.
We agree.
So I'm going to kind of jump over the first iteration from Magical Bridge and then get into the more current one. And then that's going to be in the handout that Magical
Oh,
Bridge
so
just
this,
passed out.
that's in my binder,
No, I'll highlight through there.
but I'm going to use this now.
We'll end up there. So let me just jump through.
Okay.
So kind of to your speaking, Mayor, this original rendition from Magical Bridge did have a multi-generational component over to the right. And when we had talked about slides and ramping, this pathway is the ramp to their slide. So if you look up there, number 2, that's where that slide is.
Okay.
And so you can see how long that pathway is to get to that. Other components that they had spinning features, they had various types of swings, a play stage, recognition wall, and then a water feature. And so we, through the Park and Rec Committee, there were comments about water features not really being maintainable and functional. And so these were some of the images that they had that were associated with that at the time. Then they revised their proposal, and this is what they presented to the Park and Rec Committee, and it's illustrated in that handout as well. And so they basically had 2 options. And so one is, call it the basic playground without the multi-generational component, which you can see illustrated here with, again, that ramped up slide area, different climbing features up the sides to get to the slide, various swings, again, a little play stage, spinning features, and recognition wall, and we'll get to some of those renderings in a second. And then if the council desired and if funding were obtainable, expanding it to provide that multi-generational space. So that's kind of, if they raise enough money or don't raise enough money, that's kind of where things would fall.
Well, I would think that we could put it as a requirement and they would have to raise enough money to
So
cover it. That's what they're offering.
Yeah, so again, if that's the direction. And so here are some images. And so here is what you have in your package now is an overall overview rendering. And you can see some of those existing trees there.
Yeah.
That help provide shade. They also do provide a few shade structures, both in the multi-generational area as well as at the top of the slide. And so again, the major features, and there are more than just those major features. Here's, I'll call it a spin table with, I think, a bench and places for the wheelchairs for that to spin around. We'll get into it in one of the other images, but a net climbing structure kind of in this corner under the tree, a small play stage, sound, musical devices, recognition wall again, slide, a little quiet corner hut, then different types of swings. And then in a multi-generational area, again, different types of swings as well. So here is a rendering of that recognition wall with those kind of sound musical bars where kids can bang on it and make different noises. Here you can see an image of that spin table with the climbing structure in the back, the playhouse in the back, and kind of seat wall around the area. And again, behind that, you can kind of see over to the side the musical stuff. Another image of that performance space. And then here, images of different types of swings. So these are ranging for different types of accessibility features and different types of play. And then here is another image of that slide. And so you have the ramp that comes up from the left on this screen. And then I think there's 3 different slides coming off of it in different directions there. And then this here are a couple images of the multi-generational space, so large games. And so what type of games, those are all we can get public feedback on. The quiet corner looks like some pull-up bars and things like that as well. And so again, the current proposal for Magical Bridge is to raise the funds and implement something like this. Again, there would be some public outreach to get further feedback from our residents as to what they would desire.
What's the ground cover? In the Magical Bridge?
It varies. It would either be poured in place, and they also proposed some cork surface, I think. Bonded cork surface. So it provides a different aesthetic, but it's all a continuous surface.
Is that proprietary just to the Magical Bridge, or is that commercially available?
It's commercial. It's available.
And the green is fake grass.
Yeah, so I believe you do have Magical Bridge here. You've also got public comment that still needs to be taken, and you got your subcommittee.
So you ready for questions on?
You should
on
hear
this?
from the subcommittee before we get into comments.
Yeah.
Can I ask questions first, or what are we
Yes,
doing?
we can ask questions because you did a presentation, so absolutely go ahead.
Okay. I have questions about the stage. Because I know the other Magical Bridge, the larger destination ones have programming there, which I don't think is our intention for Atherton. So I'm curious about the stage.
The first thing, if I may, just to Robert's nice presentation. Everything.
Wait, you have to have a microphone.
Everything we propose is multi-generational. So when we say inclusive, we mean everyone. That means the parents, the children. So even though you reference the multi-generational space, that's more of a, a community, additional community gathering space. So I just first wanted to make that comment that everything is multi-generational. The community gathering space can be really anything. At this point, we have a placeholder for a 1-level area where perhaps you could come up and read a book every now and again, or maybe you have something you'd like to do, or maybe there's a group from high school that wants to perform some jazz. It's a place for people to gather and to come together. And I know That's what we heard from many, many voices over the months, that people are looking for that gathering place. So it can really be anything. It will not be the big 2-level. This is a neighborhood magical bridge design. It will not be the big colorful space that will bring, 20,000 people to your community. It will be for your community to enjoy. So that's a great question about the stage. And then you'll be surprised how many people will come out from your community, Girl Scouts and other groups that will want to come and do fun things with your 4-year-old and maybe 5-year-old.
What are these little brown things? Are those rubber or bouncy things?
They are rubber. They're intended to sort of be climbers, and they are placeholders for now. We put them in the side of the hill for the younger kids because we also have found that most younger kids like to be in the same space as the older kids. So we do, every magical bridge is fenced in for those reasons.
So it's not two separate as one, and
It's
the
like
whole
it's
thing's
fully
fenced.
fenced.
Absolutely. And yes, absolutely.
Another question, you're having to bring in a lot of dirt to create this mountain. Is that a majority of the money that's going in here?
So much of what we spend is site preparation, but it's not as extensive as it looks. It's not as high of a cost, I think, in that particular slide mount. It's not a large space, and so it won't be as significant.
I have another question about the swings. Is it possible, I was looking at one of the pages, and there is like the backlist type of just like regular seat. Can you have faster swings and still, because a lot of the swings in your playgrounds right now are low and very gentle. And for bigger kids, my maniac 4-year-old being one of them, he likes faster, bigger swing.
Yeah, the regular swings, we call them, right?
Yeah.
Where you can really go high. So we always have at least 2 of those in there. The flat disc swing is great. But maybe 5 to even up to 8 kids can join together in that. It's also the perfect height for perhaps a parent or somebody that uses a wheelchair to transfer on and enjoy it with their kids too. And then we have the bucket seat for the little kids. So there's a variety. And actually, I'll reference you as the magical mayor because you had some very good questions, especially about the different equipment. So we are very equipment agnostic. We source what we feel is the best, most durable, most aesthetically pleasing. We do not like plastics. We don't like the cheap and cheerful look of plastic. So we tend to look for the aesthetic designs that work well for communities. And there are limitations. For instance, the back seat is only available in that chunky plastic, but we do always have that as an option too.
If you got feedback from our community, which I know in the past we have, of it having a more natural look, like this is a very colorful, bright, fun. But if you got feedback that we want it to be more like the forts at Nueva, so you can have fort play, I'm seeing pieces that I've seen in your actual park. So these are all pieces you already have. Are any of it custom or is it all stock?
Well, no, it is all custom. And for the color palette, that's of course up to the town. And I don't know, I wasn't clear. I did bring, so for the last 6 months, we have had, or you have had, I should say, as a city, there's been a lot of wonderful feedback from your community members and so on. So we have that, and hopeful that that's in somebody's files because there have been a lot of good comments that we've considered and people have come to the meetings. So we didn't invite them here tonight because they've really been coming out in full force. But yes, the color palette is very easy to fix. We recognize, the aesthetic of this beautiful park is something that we'd like to honor if we are able to move ahead with this design. In our estimation, the game time proposal, even though I understand the reasons that the commission recommended it, it does not provide a lot of extra play value than what you have currently in this existing playground in our view. So what we're trying to do is reference the comments that your community has offered and has expressed a lot of enthusiasm for an aesthetically pleasing multi-generational space that will work for your 4-year-old as well as somebody that wants to come and enjoy an afternoon with their family. So of course, it's all very customizable.
I'm sorry, who are you? Can you say?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Sorry about that. Everybody knows me by now. I'm actually Olenka Villarreal. I'm the founder of the Magical Bridge. First playground in Palo Alto, which came about very organically, and now run the.
I have another question.
Yes.
Can you talk through if you guys are donating the park and running the construction and design for it, how would that work in terms of like public outreach, coordination with the city council, like as you guys are finalizing the design specifics, like how would that work?
Yeah. So
You want me to answer some of that?
you can't. I mean, sure, and I can jump in if you like. But
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So let me take a stab at it. So when we had talked previously, it's like what we wanted is before we move forward towards final design, we have these conceptuals that we can take out to the public, and the town would help coordinate that public engagement, both maybe through another open house at the park and or through the Park and Rec Committee to gather feedback. That would then go back to the Park and Rec Committee and Magical Bridge to kind of digest that and kind of give a little bit of direction so that they can revise that. And that can then either come back to the council for, yes, that's what we want before the final design is done. Final design would get completed. They would hire a contractor to build it. In that process, as they move towards the final design, it would go through probably the building department for code compliance review and through staff and our design team to make sure that things are okay from a constructability and park impact standpoint. So taking a look at, okay, where are the construction areas going to be? What needs to be fenced off? Making sure that our normal construction hours are adhered to and that kind of thing before they solicit a contractor to build it. That help answer?
Yes, I have another question. So since you would be doing all the funding for this, I assume donor might say, I would like to sponsor some feature that's not in this design. How would that happen? Like, what's the flow, I guess? Like, are you going to make a design and then do the funding and then, or funding and then design? Like, how are you going to do that?
Well, ideally, it's a very collaborative process. I mean, since this idea percolated as a possibility, we have had wonderful families like Katie, who's sitting here, as well as a lot of others that have come forward to really be excited about a magical bridge in their community. And so certainly there's a lot of collaboration. Certainly if somebody says, I'm feeling very passionate about something and it fits within the magical bridge sort of way of thinking, which is it welcoming to everyone? Is it multi-generational, aesthetically pleasing, et cetera? Then it would be certainly up for consideration, but nothing would happen without council's approval. Obviously, I think perhaps today's intention is just to see where the appetite is moving forward and then getting into those specifics. But I just wanted to make one quick comment that happened much earlier in the conversation related to the previous and the accessibility. And you saw the little wheelchair picture. So the reason we exist really is because of what we call the traditional ADA compliant playgrounds that consider perhaps somebody in a wheelchair accessing certain elements of a playground, but we also know that only 10% of people with disabilities are really wheelchair users. So what we do differently is we consider the whole family. We consider the members that have autism. We consider adults who might have low vision. So we really do reflect today's community, which has a lot of neurodiversity. And so the Magical Bridge is sort of the playground of innovative, more communities like your own that recognizes that we do need to consider different things for different people. So I just wanted to point out that we really do recognize that there's many different abilities, not just the wheelchair users that need assistance in a place to go. So so it would be very collaborative. And we engage the kids along the way and have a Kind by Design activity book that they do while we're doing a project. So I think your 4-year-old would have fun with this.
I have questions actually for the subcommittee, but do you guys want to, does anyone have any more questions? Go ahead.
I do. What happens if you design a $2.5 to $3 million playground, but you don't hit your funding target Is it phased? Is there a smaller design that would come into play? How does that work?
Well, it's our understanding, we wouldn't really be here confident to say we could raise the 2.2 if we didn't think we could do it in a very short order. We really think a year is a long time and we don't want to do it in that long of a period. So we are working within a budget that we think is friendly and acceptable, but I think we're going to be very careful about that. And perhaps if somebody comes forward and says, I have, 5 million I'd like to give to the project today, we'd probably have to refresh the conversation, say, would you be okay with a slightly more expensive version? But we've heard sort of loud and clear that you would like to keep it within that area and not expand too much beyond. So I think it will.
Can I
I thought
pick
it
up?
was 4 million.
No, this one, we've
got a
we've
question.
brought it down to the size
oh,
of your
okay.
existing space.
Pick up on
3.2?
hers
No,
if
she
it's a
says
different question.
2.2.
4 to 3.
Oh, 4.
Yeah,
Go
ours
ahead.
are
3.
Yeah, so like I asked earlier,
Yes.
if over a period of time that we so designate, you don't raise the $3 million, I'm expecting that it would come back and we could decide which way we want to go. We may want to go the $1 million. We're going to pay our $1 million. It may be whatever. You're going to downsize it. We may not want to downsize it. So, is that what you have offered? That you believe you can do 3 million and you're going to do it within a reasonable time frame and design it to that? Or you say, hey, we only did 2 million. And we have the right to say, well, thanks very much, but we're going to go with game time.
Yeah.
Or
no,
you're
I-
looking at an exclusive, I guess that's the thing.
Yeah. No, our intention is to really abide by what we will agree to. I think if you decide, let's see what happens and let's go with the Magical Bridge design, you will sort of give your perspective and directive to staff we would put together a time frame that we would commit to raising those funds. And we've been speaking to potential donors, but of course it's hard to raise funds when you don't have the green light from the city council. So we do believe in magic and we know it is the season of giving and it would be a bit of a miracle, but we might be able to do something before the end of the year, but also have a time frame. And then if for some reason we don't hit the number that we're looking for within that time frame, yes, of course, we would return to council and say, this is what we have. This is what we can do with what we have. If you'd like to throw a few extra pennies and get a little more, you can, but if not, we can.
Or could we terminate with no consequence of termination?
Well, I suppose. we
Because
could
some
put
of
that in there.
I've looked at some of your earlier contracts and they were pretty
Owners.
difficult to work with.
Owners.
And yeah, that's a good word. But
What did
so
you
we
say?
would want to
Sorry.
have something that says if you can't do it, then we can give you, 30-day notice and we walk away as friends and there's no consequence of termination.
Well, I think we'd have to talk about all that with you and the city and
Yeah,
so on. I mean,
so
we
I-
certainly don't want to be in an agreement that we're spending a lot of time working on something if we don't feel it can be successful and what you're expecting. So we agree. And I appreciate you keeping
So
an
I
eye
have,
on
I
that.
have a question. So I have 3 questions about this. I know of 2 Magical Bridge parks that you've built, one in Redwood City and one in Palo Alto.
So this would be the 10th, actually, if we get this one. So we've done 9 since we started the foundation. And
Are they all kind of in that larger city?
well, we've done
area?
a couple, I'm happy to, they're on our website too, but they're actually, we have 2 that we've done with the schools. We've done more destination playgrounds. That's sort of how we started. I mean, I fell into this very organically. I'm not going to give you my whole,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
whole background, but we really started because of the need for a playground that really meets the whole family. And so while we started as the larger one, we now recognize that communities, neighborhoods benefit from thoughtful design. So what's exciting for us is that if Atherton gives us the green light in the spirit of your town's goals and the innovative spirit and everything that you stand for, you would be the first neighborhood Magical Bridge design, which means that it would be, designed for your community in a way that others have been designed for the whole,
Yeah.
kind of
So
community.
I'm just, I'm having a hard time putting my head around why the Magical Bridge, why you would want to donate it, raise the money yourself and donate it to the town, if it were not, I don't know, some kind of a branding, bragging rights, for
For sure. Okay, for
building in
sure.
Atherton.
Would love to say that there's a magical bridge here, and I will be very candid with
Yeah.
you. We've been at it here with you for the last 6 months, and I have really dozens of families, individuals that have really been passionate, and they've been showing up to these meetings, the Park and Rec meetings. And it has been a labor of love for us, really, because we adore these families. We know these families. They have been asking us to stick with this with Atherton, and certainly because they have come forward. I mean, these are the kind of community members you have. They've come forward and said, we want this so badly that we will pay for it as your community, Atherton community. So they have come forward and have given me the confidence to sit here and say, yes, we can raise the funds and it will be a gift to the city. And what you do with that $1 million that you allocated is up to you. So it really, it's
Findings.
very unusual, and it's not the way this is not a way we would normally do business, but because of the passion behind the families that have stuck with it for so many months and several that have just come forward, that's why, and certainly we'll be very proud of it. We know we're going to do something that you will hopefully enjoy as well. But yes, it is unusual, and I'm just very impressed by the commitment that some of the families here have towards doing something very special here.
Did you have something you want to say?
Just another quick question. These, as we've kind of talked about this evening, the Magical Bridge Playground is more of a custom playground,
Custom,
custom
yes.
items. And the Game Time Playground is more of an off-the-shelf sort of items. So I assume the maintenance obligation on this one is a little bit higher than a traditional playground. Is there an idea floating around about a donor maintenance fund or anything like that?
Well, you'll have $1 million sitting in some account. Maybe that can help. No, but just so I'm clear, it is a custom designed space. So it is, to your point, you made a great question when you asked if we actually have designed it, and we've spent, the last over decade researching what makes an outdoor space engaging for everyone. But the items that we're sourcing are not from one manufacturer, but they are from manufacturers that do produce those. And so they come with warranties like everything else. So the maintenance is not going to be terribly different. The only custom pieces are like the Hideaway Hut, which is here locally maintained. But yes, I mean, the only reason it might need a little more maintenance is it's probably going to get a little bit more attendance by your community than, a typical structure maybe.
Can I ask a hard question?
Yeah.
Some of the negative feedback or the concerns expressed by the subcommittee was that somehow that what you're proposing doesn't meet what was requested in the surveys. And you have this subjective opinion that maybe this is not as much fun because you have like a little flat thing. So can you address some of that? Because is it fun for everybody, or what are we trading off?
Yeah, so I actually do appreciate that question. We have looked at the survey questions, and candidly, the survey questions were very basic in many ways, right? So do you want to swing? Do you want to slide? Do you, these kinds of questions. And then actually about 15 members in that survey, which was about 200 people, specifically said, I would love it to be a magical bridge. And then so when we scrubbed through a little bit more details, we found that there were other comments and input that was not reflected. So we have additional information. We recognize that there are people I know, like Alex's son, who likes to climb, and that kind of thing. So there's those kinds of playgrounds are really just everywhere, right? You see a lot of those kinds of towers and so on. Magical Bridge, for this particular project and the size and what we've heard from your communities, this would be a multi-generational gathering place for the whole family. It has some climbing. If you really want to go climbing, you go probably somewhere else. But if you want to connect with community, if you want the whole family to have a place to go, you want to honor the aesthetic that you have here in this beautiful Holbrook Palmer Park, and have a place for it's all fenced in. It's a thoughtful design. It will grow with your community over the years, essentially. And so that's what we are bringing forward. And then the fact that we have donors that have said, well, we'll just pay for it. I mean, I think it just is about as magical as it can be. I can't think of a reason why a town would not consider such a gift. But at the same time, we are at your service. If this is not of interest, certainly we are delighted to be working with communities that do welcome a magical bridge.
One last question.
Yeah.
This is going to be your 10th one. Have you done market research to see which of the things are most used?
Yes, we do. And we are in the middle right now of refreshing that right now with Stanford. So
you have some actual statistics of this is the one that everyone loves and this is a must have. And
well, we do, but remember, so the other Magical Bridge playgrounds that are in the communities are seeing about 20,000 guests every month. That's not the kind of space we're building here. So those, they have programming, and we know the slide is a big hit. So the slide is always popular because there's a lot of things you can do. It's not prescriptive play where structure is just, that prescriptive where you're up the slide, you're down the slide. There's a lot of different choices that people have every time they come into a Magical Bridge space. And so there's a lot of things that we have learned and we continue to iterate. And so we would count on you to offer your suggestions, and we would look for what we call project ambassadors to help us through this. There's a lot of people in your community that don't feel connected to opportunities to connect. And so we did hear from many of those that have families, children, grandchildren. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but somebody along the way mentioned to us in this project, they said, oh, well, we don't have those 88 Atherton, but every fourth person around the world is impacted in some way that would benefit from thoughtful design. So we are here to do above and beyond what is legally mandated, but we do know that it creates a lot of magic within the community. So we hope that Atherton will be our number 10 as we celebrate 10 years next year.
so can we hear from the subcommittee on what?
I think, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Back on my shade question, because I go to your playgrounds a lot. Your slides are super fun. They're also like so hot. So what is your shade plan? Is it just not in this image because it would block the?
Well, there is some shade elements, and I'm going to say we tried to show the existing trees as best we could, which doesn't cover the items, but you're lucky that space you're looking at does have a fair amount of shade. There is shade over the items that need to be shaded. You can always add more shade. These are the kinds of things that we get to do. If we can find the money, we'll add more shade. And we like to plant mature trees. I'm not big on all the structures, and I try to make it as organic. We try to make it as organic and friendly as possible to the planet and the trees. So it would be my preference if we add more mature trees, and that's easy to do.
So if we have no more questions, can we hear from them?
Yeah, let's get on with the meeting.
I'll give the mic to Alex. I think that in the interest of time, at some point, you're going to need to take public comment.
Okay. Why don't you do that and then we'll have public comment after? Is that? Okay.
So shade was also a big request from many people in the survey. So staff knows that, and I think they'll incorporate that as best they can. So as we were developing a subcommittee, what to do about the playground, we leaned a lot on the survey results that went out to the community and public comment. And shade was one item. The things they wanted to improve off the current playground were the apparatus for big kids. There wasn't that much, and the big kids don't really use it. So people kind of grew out of it kind of early, maybe after 6 or 7, something like that, then they would stop going. So one of the things we tried to do was add more apparatus, add more things for bigger kids to do. So things with more challenge. Right now it's not terribly challenging in the bigger kid area to do. And my son has reverted to just climbing on the outside of the apparatus because he's gone up and down it so many times, it's not that high. So that's went into our thinking of how to really improve this playground. And one thing I'll point out is that both the new Magical Playground design and our design are bigger than the current area. So, and they're about the same size, both our designs. So I think that's good because it would give more equipment, more choices for people. But one of the things we tried to do coming in with the Magical Playground when we looked at some accessibility, and the challenge with accessibility is that things like building a high slide is not possible if you don't have a lot of area, because you need to have a certain amount of grade to be able to get up to that area. So I know that in Magical Bridge, they have in Redwood City very high slides, which I think a lot of older kids would love, but they can't do it. I don't think they can do it within this smaller area that we have available in Atherton. That's kind of one challenge. Another thing that the community said they really wanted was, although both sides have said some really, really want sand, others really don't want sand. And we were thinking, well, we'll have the sand option if people want to play with the sand, and if they don't, they can stay out of the sand. But I know that from an accessibility standpoint, sand is not preferred, but there are community members who really advocated we need to have a sand pit. We need to have a sandbox. So we decided to include that there. So that was part of the challenge, is some of the equipment is not best for accessibility. So, we couldn't put that into the Magical Bridge design. But we could put in our conventional design. So that's one reason why we kept it the conventional design. We also tried to design our conventional design with more accessibility, but it does take out equipment because you do have to, in order to get up to the height of the slide, you have to have a longer ramp. And so that means, well, we would have to get rid of some equipment that was in the way. Because already you are limited in space because of fall zones, because the higher you build something, the more you have to account for someone could fall and hurt themselves if there's some other equipment in the way. So because of that, you do have a limit even in the way playgrounds are designed now. So because of that, we decided, okay, we'll make some accessibility improvements so that we stay within our budget that we were given, as well as maximize the fund and the apparatus available. So that was the kind of thinking into it. Alenka very importantly pointed out that we had, I think, 12 mentions of the Magical Bridge in the survey. Just people said, hey, make it like Magical Bridge Playground. But I also want to point out that we had like 10 or so mentions of Nealon Park, which is a game time design. In fact, you'll see if you look at their design, it looks very much like Nealon Park because it's both by game time. And I would say from my personal experience, my son loves both Magical Bridge and game time, Nealon Park. He's been to the one in Redwood City and one in Palo Alto for Magical Bridge, and then Nealon Park, obviously. I will say that Magical Bridge, just from my experience, tends to be more crowded, a lot more people. I think Olenka and her team has done an excellent job of branding and getting community members in. I think our subcommittees, one of our concerns is whether the branding may bring in too many people to our park. We've always thought of it as the local area community park, that we welcome people from the area, but Magical Bridge is kind of like a level above that. And it can be a destination type of park where people from farther away want to come because it's very well known locally. So that's kind of the concern there, another concern that we have. So I think that kind of summarizes how we're thinking. We didn't look at this new design. It came right before Thanksgiving holiday, so the subcommittee never met. We had already by then in the early November meeting voted to recommend the conventional design. So we never had anything.
So in your chart where you're comparing things, I was surprised you said responsive to community feedback, and you gave Magical Bridge only a partial when they've made it clear that they're going to have all these input meetings. Where with the conventional design, we had the input meetings and it's done.
Yeah.
And so they're saying they're open to more input, and then also add more shade, expect it. Well, that to me, I'm taking that as a yes, because you put yes on the other one. And I don't think we're adding more shade, but they're saying they would do it. So I guess I'm confused by your chart.
If it was for Magical Bridge, because they're still in the concept design, so I think they were planning to add more shade, because I had said if we do proceed, people are going to ask for more shade.
Okay,
That was their original design.
okay, all right.
yeah.
But then they came in with the other one.
This new proposal, yes.
Yes, and so would you change anything in your recommendation with the new proposal?
Well, I like the proposal better. I still have concerns about how many people will come and the amount of apparatus. But I like the proposal better because it saves money for the town. Well, actually, one reason why I like it better is because this is more of a realistic look, because before it was very, it was a design that was more like not stick figures, but kind of more drawings than a realistic.
Well, I think
kind
you
of
said
picture.
a good thing about the people coming, and this is of the negative inputs I've gotten from people, and this is the only negative inputs I've gotten from people, is that on the Magical Bridge website, it says it's a destination, and they're just afraid that the whole place is just going to be crowded. And, and what I'm hearing is this is be more of a neighborhood, smaller scale bound. So if you want the giant thing, you go to Redwood City or you go to Palo Alto. But, and maybe the first week or so, more people will come. But I would think that over time that would dissipate with the smaller, more neighborhood thing that's tailored to what we'd asked for. So, but I did want to bring that up,
Sure,
because
sure.
that's one of the things people are just afraid, oh, our park's going to be crowded now, and we won't be able to do anything there.
But also as we build more, the first ones were very extra. Santa Clara is quite crowded. But we had one of your Atherton residents who's been very supportive of this project and generous is Laurel Miranda, who was the chair of Curiosity. We built one at the Curiosity site, and that is a very modestly busy site because it is a smaller one. So certainly when you have the larger ones, that's one thing, but this would be the neighborhood one. And again, it would have a very community oriented feel. We talked just earlier, you were talking about older adults and services and so on. So many of our ambassadors are older adults and they feel connected to the community. And so that little attachment, all the multi-generational is one thing, but the older adults do come and they enjoy it. We have senior swing days that helps restore memory loss with older adults. So we really do recognize that inclusive means everyone. So we do hope that it would become that kind of place.
Thank you.
You'd make an excellent kindness ambassador.
Okay.
Rick?
Yeah, one thing you said was that you thought that the proposal that you guys are recommending
The money.
was more responsive to the community input.
Yeah,
And you mentioned the sand, and I heard during public comment, a lot of comments about the sand, particularly from parents of younger kids. What else?
vertical climbers, horizontal climbers, those were preferences there. Balance equipment. I believe our conventional design is just more equipment in general. And so there's more things to do. A high slide is like a 2-story slide is something that we have that's not in the Magical Bridge design, probably because there's not enough space to get the ramp all the way up. And we tried to put in a ramp in the conventional design, but then it said we had to remove some equipment there, the log, for example, which I know the log at Neelan Park is very popular for kids to climb, and I didn't want to take out the log there. So it was a question of if we add more accessibility, we'd have to remove equipment. So we said, let's keep more equipment. We'll keep a significant area still accessible, at least wheelchair accessible. And if we want to make it all poured in place, we could spend a little more money if council so decides. But we'll try to maximize the equipment, the fun, and as much of the child age range as possible so that more families can keep all their kids in one place rather than only young kids can go there. Because a lot of our young kids right now age out of our playground because we just don't have enough challenging equipment for older kids.
I hope you'll forgive me. I don't want to belabor the point, but I know the Parks and Rec Commission has heard from us many times, but we're meeting with council for the first time. I just want to sort of reiterate that with our community today, when we talk about accessibility, right? So you think about families who have children with ADHD. Okay, that doesn't seem like perhaps something that you would think about in the disability bucket, but children with ADHD really benefit from the motion of spinning. And so when we talk about welcoming a design for everyone, again, it isn't just the wheelchair user, it is those teenagers that will need the spinning. I mean, we're doing a middle school in East Palo Alto. We understand that movement is really important at all ages. So I just want to sort of reiterate that we are really thinking about the sensory seekers, the sensory avoiders, the spinners, the non-spinners, people that we may not be hitting on all the cylinders, but we're really doing the best we can to make sure that that family can come to Magical Bridge and they will get exactly what they need to make their day, magical, if you will. So it's more than just the wheelchair users, and that's what is different about us.
So
Can I call for public comment? Do we have any public comment online, Anthony?
I will ask. And our two public people left.
You got to come to the microphone because we're recording it and we want to make sure you're heard.
We got a lot of letters.
We got a lot of
We're
letters.
supporting it
A
today.
lot of letters.
Right here at the
There's
podium.
microphone on the podium.
Okay, my name is Katie Pack. I'm an Atherton resident, and I just wanted to summarize really what Olenka has said. As far as the fundraising goes, we're really reaching out to major donors in Atherton. We have a lot of people that are behind the Magical Bridge concept that are not physically here, but they are all here and have voiced how they were really behind it. And, if need be, we can go into a second tier of fundraising too, where a lot of people are interested. So I just wanted to, touch on that we're working with a lot of different people. So.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, please come up.
I'm sorry?
You can go to the mic.
Yeah.
When you say you have a lot of people who give money, how many is that?
Well, I don't have an exact amount, of people that we have major donors. There's probably about 10 or 11 that are
Okay.
very interested.
And what do we do if we don't raise the amount of money that we need to raise from benefit?
Yeah, we covered that.
About that.
First, we pull out our magic wand and it always works. But if it doesn't, then you're welcome to terminate the contract and send us packing to another community. Okay, I promise
That's
we
been
can
covered.
get
Thank
the
you.
money for you. Don't worry.
Any other public comments?
Anthony?
Why don't we take a vote?
Laurel L. Miranda, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Laurel. I'm a resident of Atherton for 8 years and I own 2 properties in town. I'm also the parent of 2 children with very different learning profiles. My oldest son is married and thankfully gainfully employed and about to make me a grandmother. My youngest has a cognitive disability and autism and lives with me and my husband in Lindenwood. And full disclosure, I also serve on 2 Peninsula nonprofits that serve people with developmental disabilities. As Olenka mentioned, I have also served as board chair at Curiosity, a children's science museum in San Mateo, where I had the privilege of overseeing the design and build of a new, what I would call a pocket playground at Curiosity called Whoosh. We call it Whoosh, a playground designed by Magical Bridge. So it's not branded Magical Bridge, it's branded Curiosity, but we do like to acknowledge that it was designed by Magical Bridge. So I have lived through the selection process for a playground designer that you are going through now, and I am so grateful that you're giving Magical Bridge an opportunity. Obviously, I will be recommending that you take advantage of the revised offer that Magical Bridge is putting on the table. But first, I just wanted to thank the Park and Recreation Commissioners Alex and Walter, Public Works Director Robert, and Councilmember Rick for sitting through so many presentations. And each of those folks really probed and pushed to get to the 2 distinct proposals that you're considering tonight. So I thank them so much because I think they improved both proposals considerably through their questioning and their probing. So here are my thoughts for you to consider as you make your decision. First of all, no playground design is going to do all things for all people. You can just forget that. It's just not going to happen. I think you have to look at your town goals and consider what best meets the town goals. It's kind of like marrying somebody. Like, you don't get every single quality that you want when you marry someone, but you have to choose the person you're going to marry, right? So are you going to marry Magical Bridge, or are you going to marry Game Time? And I think in the balance that Magical Bridge does the best to meet your town goals. Especially I'm thinking about like the goal to keep a small town atmosphere. I think they've mentioned that the playground can be branded and the color scheme that you want. But they'll also have beautiful equipment that is just aesthetically lovely to look at. And I think you'll be pleased with it. Whereas Game Time, it's off the shelf is a good way to describe it. I'll leave it there. Improving safety is another one of your town goals. I feel Magical Bridge has zero tan bark, which is a trip hazard. They have zero sand, which is a breeding ground for toxoplasmosis, which is a devastating disease for pregnant women and can also result in the death of fetuses. And I think it's unfortunate to pair playgrounds with sand when that's a possibility. All the fall zones in a Magical Bridge playground are going to be either the poured rubber or cork surface if you choose cork over rubber. Whereas I think we were talking about some of the Game Time designs, you're going to fall onto tan bark or the engineered bark. I want to respectfully disagree about fencing. I think it needs to be around the entire park. I agree with Stacy that multiple age kids need to have to be contained, but you also need to think about people with special needs who are prone to eloping.
Ms. Marani, you have 30 seconds, please. Thank you.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I'm just going to nut it out for you. Maybe I'll send you a letter, but I have never regretted choosing Magical Bridge to design Whoosh. No one has ever said a negative word about Whoosh once it was in place, and people love it. There's a lot of joy and happiness that's brought to Curiosity, and I would wish that for you as a city council and for our community and for those who will enjoy the park for the next 20 years. A playground that you can look at with pride and where kids like my daughter can access play and actually make friends in their own town instead of having to trek themselves to Palo Alto or Woodwood City. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments? No. Okay, so do you need us to take a vote or direction or what?
We would prefer, I mean, if you're able to make direction on one way or the other. If not, you can continue this to a future meeting for direction at that time.
Can everyone go around and make our comments right now?
I'll start.
Go ahead.
First off, I think that having a fully inclusive design is important here. I've heard it from a lot of residents well before this thing progressed to where it is today. $3 million, looking at $3 million in a donation, I think is something that I would not want to bypass. And I feel that, my concern is how fast can you get it? And, how sure you that you can get it? Because, we've did some fundraising here for some buildings that we did. And we were a little disappointed with the full outcome, but if you're that comfortable with the $3 million, I'm willing to take it and take the inclusive one, because for me, that's what we need to have. And as I said, I've heard from a lot of people, and I agree with you. Many kids here are not disabled, like in a wheelchair, physically disabled, but are disabled in other ways. And I think that some of the things that I've read on your proposal, listened to your proposal, and that I've read about you, say that your equipment does benefit that. So obviously, there's going to be some changes that we want. And I thought it was very positive that you said you'd have these open meetings and then adjust things. But we can get a great playground for free. I'm in favor of it personally.
That last line tells it all right there. All right, go ahead, Rick.
So I've sat through a lot of meetings on this, and I think that I've liked the Magical Bridge design from the beginning, because I think that there's some things that are just incredibly creative. And I do think that they work very hard to speak to everyone with the variety of disabilities that we see in the world. The things I like in particular that I think kids will love are these these pipes that kids can bang on and hear different sounds based on how high the pipe is. I think that's, they call it imagination zone, and I think it generates imagination. And I like their little teepee. I think kids will hang out in that. At the same time, I think that there are real desires that I've heard from members of the Atherton community, particularly parents with young kids wanting a sandbox and talking about what was most attractive in the current park, and the swings in the sandbox were really at the top of the list. And I think there's a real concern about having an open sandbox, but I'm sure that many communities cover them and that we can find a way to cover it. So I'm not disturbed by that. I don't like the tan bark. I think I would spend more money not to have the tan bark. I think it would be better to have the port in place or the cork. I like the idea of cork. I really think Magical Bridge has a lot of really good ideas, but I think that it will also attract a lot of people, and it'll change the dynamic in the park, which I'm very concerned about. And I've heard from a lot of residents that that's the most common comment that I've gotten from residents. So I would support what the subcommittee recommended, but I'd add in a couple things, and I'm willing to pay the money. We've got the money. We've got a surplus of $3 million a year. $1 million for a really good playground is not a big deal for us, I don't think. Of course, it'd be great to avoid that, but I think that the variety of the different things that are offered in the community playground, as the subcommittee articulated, I feel like I have to be responsive to that because that's what people have asked for. So I would go with the subcommittee's recommendation, but I'd like to add in those imaginary sound instruments and maybe the teepee, if we can do that somewhere, because I think kids would love those. I really think there's very attractive stuff in some of the features in Magic Bridge.
Tizzy?
Yeah. So I sent both of these designs to, I don't know, 70 parents. Everyone loves Magical Bridge. Most of the families I talk to are people without disabilities. Pretty much everyone liked the conventional design better because I think it has more for more ages. I struggle because I think there's a balance between needing to have inclusive design and also a lot of kids also need risky play. And the inclusive design of Magical Bridge is not as risky as the conventional design playground, which is also serving a need. I'm also worried that the conventional design playground, I would want to make like 1 million changes to it and it would get really expensive. And so I'm going back and forth on what we know will be amazing. The Magical Bridge inclusive community playground will be amazing, and it'll also be free to this town, versus the conventional design playground, which I think will also be a major draw because the Nealon Park playground is very popular. I mean, the volume of kids that I see in that playground versus Holbrook Palmer, it's going to be like 10x more. And so, we're going to be dealing with a change to the park regardless, because we're doing this because our playground is not great. So we're improving it. We're going to see an increase with that. And so I really love both of them and I like a lot of features of both of them. And so I'm still muffling back and forth because I think what if I were to rework based on my, desire to make a very nice new playground, there would be no tambark on any of it. There would be fence on all of it. There'd be a lot more shade. There'd be a lot more tables. There'd be a lot, we'd add the sensory stuff. There'd be a lot. It would get bigger. It would become a bigger destination. So it's inviting funding problems and crowding problems for us to do, to do everything, to have a playground for everybody. And so, I think and we still have to do the bathrooms, which is like $500,000 probably.
Yeah,
And
but
so
that's,
I'm just, I don't know. I'm going back and forth because I would like both of them very much on this one. So I'm going to keep thinking about it. Maybe you guys have strong feelings in one way or
oh, okay,
another.
I'll express my
Yeah.
opinions about it. And I think I kind of alluded to it in my questions. I feel very uncomfortable about the offer to have a brand do their own fundraising from our community and essentially pay to build because the attraction of getting something for free, you never get anything for free, okay, in life. You really don't. I agree with Councilmember DeGoya. We do have the money to invest in our park and invest in a playground. From the beginning, I've always said, what we've got now is terrible. It's old. It's dated. It needs to be improved. It needs to be modernized. And yes, we need to create more inclusive type of features to it. And why can't we kind of mix and match a little bit? We need safer surfaces. We need cleaner surfaces. But the risky play, Councilmember Holland, you brought that up. It's so true. We cannot create little bubbles for our children to, unless we envelop them in the, padded where you go boxing. So if they fall down, they're not going to get hurt. But you just can't do that. There's got to be kind of, that excitement, risky play sometimes, but you do do your best to provide a safe environment. I look at the Magical Bridge Inclusive Play Community Playground. It seems very sterile to me. And I guess I'm old fashioned. I'm the eldest here on council. So I know, I resonate to when I had my kids and my grandkids, and we'd go over to Sacred Heart and play on all of their climbing structures when they were real little. And it didn't have all the, safety nets around. And I do believe that we can incorporate that. I'm not completely enamored with what has been presented to us from the game time presentation, but I think we're getting there. And I'm just not ready to choose one or the other. But I know that I do not want to go the Magical Bridge free concept. That does not make me feel comfortable at all.
Well, I like many things about the Magical Bridge. I like the sensory stuff. I like the multi-generation components. I do still like sand, and I think sand is part of sensory play and can be done on tables that are covered. And even though all those things, there's various different things besides sands that if you go to places like Bing School, they're like experts on this, as well as other public venues. But I do have a little bit of a worry about having it being totally fun for everybody. But that may be just a misperception because I've not actually gone to see, and one of the questions I wanted to ask that I didn't ask is what percentage of kids that go and play that aren't handicapped? So I can see residents, and I'm hearing residents say that if this is a subset, why are we building the whole part for the subset instead of having a subset for the special needs. So that is a perspective we've heard in a lot of letters. On the other hand, we heard a lot of letters of people saying this is the best thing since sliced bread. So I'm having a hard time. I thought that the standard presentation, I was really disappointed in it. I think you're talking about being branded and commercial. That is the totally non-imaginative thing. In fact, it feels like it's a sales pitch, the other one, because everything is off the shelf. It looks exactly cookie cutter like everything else. And as we are looking, it's not a mix and match.
I think they're
It's
trying
one
to
vendor.
create within the budget, I think. And so if the budget was a little bit more
All right.
flexible.
Well, anyway, I'm giving my opinion now.
I know.
But anyway, I found it very unimaginative, and I thought it was missing a lot of the pieces that are just glorious in the other one. So I like Stacy, I'm torn between which way to go with it. And I do, like Bill, I agree with God, they're willing to do all this. But I think that the devil will also be in the contract, because we have to protect our ability that if they can't live up to their part, or if there's issues involved, the actual contract is really going to be relevant, the terms of the contract.
I brought that up earlier.
So, so I guess I'm with Stacy that I'm kind of torn, so.
We could table it and mull over it.
But when will we bring it back? How do we bring it back and go forward?
18th, sorry, your December 18th council meeting has one item on the public hearing. That's the reach codes.
Okay,
There's nothing on the regular agenda, but there's also your volunteer holiday party to follow that. So if that discussion continues on till 7, 8 o'clock, you will miss that party.
When's that party supposed to start?
6. People start showing up at 6. Your meeting starts at 6. You could be done by 6:45. And then if this is on the agenda, I don't know.
Why can't we move it to January?
well, I don't want to put it out. I personally don't want to put it out that far. And I think we can.
And the other thing is, I feel like we're getting pressured because they
There's
say
a
that
fundraising
their
window.
fundraising is now. And so we have to make the decision, because it's the end of the year thing.
I mean, I'm happy to make a motion, but I think the right thing is for staff. I don't think it has to go back to Park and Rec. You've gotten lots of input from Park and Rec, and staff can look at the conventional proposal and make do some add alternatives. Like, how much would it cost to put the fence all around it? How much would it cost to eliminate, we know it'd be $39,000 to eliminate the bark in the small children's area. So we have that number, but what if we were to eliminate it in the large children's area? How much of a cost would that be? How much of a cost would it be to add a couple of those really great designs that are in the Magical Bridge proposal and bring it back as add alternatives, and we can assess what.
I think that when you add all those alternatives, like what Stacy was saying, is going to be way out of our budget.
Well, that's
Honestly,
why
it
I
has to be.
suggested
So you
not
want to
adding-
postpone it? You want to
Listen.
postpone?
Not adding them all, give us add alternatives for what the different things are, and we can choose what makes the most sense within a budget that is approved. That's what I would suggest. But Park and Rec is here. You're now in 10 minutes into their meeting,
Yeah.
We need to be done.
so we can't sit here for all night.
I think what Rick said makes sense, because I think if we wanted to tinker with this new design or the conventional design to add what we like for Magical Bridge, all the changes we've talked about, I don't know that we want to do a $2 million playground on Atherton dollars. We also have to do the bathroom still. That's a big
Yeah.
expense. So
Aren't they
I would
also,
like
they're already
to-
in the CIP, the bathrooms.
well, that was part of our 1 million, right? Or is it a
No.
separate?
No, it's separately funded.
The separate thing.
Yeah, so
Okay,
you need to
great.
kind of, yeah,
I thought it was a part of it.
no.
So, okay, great. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. But either way, like,
Well, let me say, so what we are asking is, do you want to go left or do you want to go right? And so both of them can be tweaked. The issue is you go left, which is the conventional design. We can come back and say, putting in more port in place is going to cost this much, or adding the tower musical features and trying to fit it in is going to cost however much. We can certainly do that. But there's a distinction between going the conventional design and the magic. And so we're happy to say, staff can go in either direction and work to adjust the design of either one in a way that hopefully the council will be
I
happy
think
with.
what Councilmember DeGoya was indicating, we should tweak the conventional design and get those ad alternatives.
Well, the way I've heard it is that there were two undecided and two saying stay conventional and one saying magical bridge. So I don't think we have a quorum.
I think that we're not making a decision right now.
We're not
just
making a
looking
decision
at
now, so we
all
have to
ad
decide when
alternatives.
we're going to make a decision is
Well,
what.
fine, I'll make it a motion. I'll move that we go with the conventional design with a series of ad alternatives
Wait a
that
minute.
would present to us what each of these different options are, and council members can comment to George in one-on-ones of what those additional options should be. And staff can come back to us with what those additional options could be. And in January, we discuss what we want to go with.
Can I ask a question of the group?
Is there a second?
Yes, she didn't hear that you were
Sorry,
making
I
a
had to
motion.
go. I couldn't help
Yeah.
it.
So I can restate it if you want.
Would you like to restate it?
Sure.
Thank you.
So Councilmember DeGolia is suggesting that staff tweak the design based on feedback tonight, and that we also gather from one-on-ones what some specific tweaks might want to be, whether they're musical things or more sensory devices or a sandbox or whatever it is, sand tables, more senior tables, whatever that is. And we get the pricing for all of those things, bring all of that back on the conventional design in January, and then the council decides, picks from that laundry list of things for a full budget for the conventional design.
If that's what we decide to do,
Then we're not-
conventionals.
Well, I think Councilmember DeGolia is suggesting
Well,
conventional is the way to
They're
go.
asking us to go one way or the other.
Yeah, left or right.
So,
Oh, yeah,
I'm
there's a
saying that-
necessity. If you're going to go one way, then they need to do their fundraising now. If we're going to go the other way, then we just have to figure out, do we have the money to do what we want to go do? That's the decision.
So is the assumption that we cannot work with them to get them to tweak the design to what we want?
They can tweak within a limited range, meaning it has to meet their design requirements.
Brand.
I'm not going to say brand, but what I'm getting at is that it has to be all inclusive. So if you want a sandbox, it's not going to be a magical bridge. If you want monkey bars, it's not going to be a magical bridge. So within their realm of what they do, they are happy to make adjustments.
Within the conventional, you can take things from magical bridge and add it into the conventional. That's.
But I
think
think we're
that's
not
the
going to be able to
flexibility.
afford the flexibility we're
I
talking
think that's an
about.
assumption that you are
wait
making
till-
that wait until
Oh,
we
I don't
hear.
think we should be
That's why,
trying to
that's why I'm suggesting them be add alternatives so we can look at them. And it's not an all or nothing.
But
It's-
then we're locked into one decision because the fundraising period is now.
That's right.
Okay, so,
Don't like my
you know,
back
and so
against
if
the
the
wall.
money comes back and says, hey, you know, it's going to cost $3 million to do what we thought was $1 million. I mean, we have other needs, Rick.
Not gonna be
We
$3
have,
million.
we have other needs that we need to
I
spend
think there's a
on.
motion and a second on the floor.
I didn't capture a second.
I'll second it. Call for the vote.
Let's call for the vote.
Okay.
Well, say all those in favor.
All
I'll
those in
vote yes.
favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that didn't pass.
For their nose. So that might take
I'm a
the
no.
other three.
I'm a no.
I'm a no.
I don't want to close the door on them right now. I think I would be willing to postpone till we get more information to make a commitment, but I don't want to close the door on them because I think that just from the amount of changes that we want to do to the core one, that I think that in the end, that's not going to be feasible. So I don't want to close the door on them just yet.
Then let's continue the item until
January.
January.
And get more information.
What more information?
Yeah, I think we have to decide what more information.
What we are talking about is understanding whether or not there's two proposals. There's one going with an as-is thing. The other is taking what is off the shelf and then trying to add all the secret sauce into making that one what we want it to be. And until you get an idea of how much all those ads are going to cost, because this, I honestly, I guess we're disagreeing on what we project it's going to be. I think that by the time we take the conventional one and we add all the things we want to go into it, it's going to be way out of our $1 million budget.
So
Well,
I get that
we're
component.
at the limit of $1 million now.
Yeah, it's gonna
What
be-
we're saying is we're at the $1 million. Everything that you change is an
Plus.
ad. Yes.
Right.
So if we wanted to add quote unquote more risky stuff, to use your
To
word,
Magical Bridge.
to Magical Bridge, would they do it? Have we even asked them that?
There's,
Yeah, it's
that's not within the
different.
concept.
Their design.
It's not what it's
It's, right, it's.
But we could do it outside. Have a
No,
separate
because
area.
they will
Two
own it.
playground.
No. But we can do it if we go with the convention. We can
No,
add
I
some of
understand
theirs.
that. I
That's what I was
understand that.
suggesting.
I was just asking if Magical Bridge would do it.
So they won't do a hybrid.
No.
No,
They will not do
No.
a hybrid.
no.
I have a
But we
And
question.
if you postpone it, you're losing them doing fundraising over the,
Well, we have to hear that from them, though. I agree with you, and I think that that's a serious concern, but she didn't specifically say that. She just said now's a magical time, but.
I have a question from what Alex had said about the ramp height and the slide length,
Yeah.
because there's a very big difference between the Redwood City one and the Curiosity one. So Curiosity is a smaller mound, and so it's like very toddler friendly. My son loves it, but I only see the big kids at Curiosity on the spinning climbing dome thing and like the more spinny swing stuff. So do you have any idea what's the length of this slide that we're looking at here? Is this
Oh, it's
bigger than
it's-
Curiosity? Obviously, it's not as big as Redwood City, but like, have you?
about
I
like
haven't been to the
Curiosity.
Curiosity one,
Okay.
but
like curiosity.
It's
Similar.
the-
modest.
the ramp
Has-
up, what is the requirement? Is it 1 foot for
This is-
every?
This is a pretty modest one.
Yeah. It's like
Um,
curiosity.
It's like
Yeah.
Curiosity. Okay.
So pursuant to the motion that failed, we'd be tweaking the conventional design and coming back with a punch list of particular items you could pick and choose from for adding or removing. If there's a second motion on the table, what would we be specifically doing with the Magical Bridge side?
Well, I'd like to know, somebody should get back with them and say, you know, we're postponing the decision to January. Does your offer to fund this thing and take public input still hold? They may say, you know, we missed the mark. So that'd be
I
a
think
good
she
input for them to
actually
say.
did say that. She
If I
did
could just,
say.
If I could just say that the
Man,
fundraising has been a work in progress. It's not something that,
It's
you know,
not
we
a problem.
started a while back. And people that are interested are watching how you vote. You know, it's sort of a catch-22.
Yeah.
So therefore, you know, but it's it's a work in progress is what I'll tell you.
Do you think that if we delay to January, it'll impact the fundraising?
No,
Is holiday season important?
It's hard to say. You know,
Okay.
everybody's in a different place, so I can't answer for them. But I think, you know, we'd still be okay.
Okay.
But there were concerns with the Magical Bridge design that you wanted us to address with Magical Bridge. Is there something you want us to do between now and January to that one as well as the other one so that you can decide between the two?
I
Or are
so
we
much.
still?
I have some Magical Bridge design
Yeah.
feedback if they wanted to rework this again, if that's what we're doing. Are
In
we
the
gonna make
interest of
everyone do
time,
this
can we do
again?
that in one-on-one or
You can certainly
otherwise
do
get
that in one-on-one if you want to provide me or staff some feedback to do that. But is that what your expectation is? In January, we're coming back with changes on a punch list of add alternates for the first one, conventional, as well as some of the tweaks that I get from one-on-one for the Magical Bridge item.
I think that
And then
that's
you
the
can
fair
decide
way
between
to
the
go
two.
do it,
Yes, because
George.
they offered to work with us and we
Right.
should understand a little bit more what that means.
Well, we know what it means in terms of working with us, but what I'll need is some
Yeah.
specifics from
Yeah,
council members.
and
if
I
there's-
like Robert's idea of collecting that one-on-one.
That's fine.
So let's do that.
Yeah, because
'cause-
these other guys are now 20 minutes into
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
meeting. We need.
All right. So
Okay.
do you have everything you need right now?
It's just general direction, no motion, correct?
Right.
Okay, great, thank you.